of our activities for last year, and addressing a broad spectrum of development priorities, including sustainable projects and climate action. OICCI member companies are not only adopting sustainable practices, but are setting benchmarks for inclusive and responsible growth. I will urge some of you or all of you to, when you have time, do go on the website or get a copy of our report and look into the initiative that has been taken by many of our members. We are very proud that in terms of contribution itself, these not all 200 members have shared their information, but one third of them have shared, and they have contributed roughly $40 to $45 million. So if we just double it, close to $100 million is being spent on CSR initiative, which includes the sustainability initiative by our members, which is very commendable. OICCI is proud to serve as Pakistan's voice for private sector on the global stage, having represented the country as the only private sector entity at the Pakistan Pavilion during the both COP28 and COP29, which just finished last in November in Azerbaijan. Through our active participation, we have reinforced a clear message that business must be the integral partners in building a climate resilient future for Pakistan. Carbon markets present a transformative opportunity for Pakistan to align climate ambition with economic incentives. Today's workshop, in particular, is timely and offering an in-depth overview of the recently launched policy guidelines for trading in carbon markets, while also highlighting global business practices and emphasizing the critical role of private sector engagement in enabling carbon trading mechanism. We are honored to co-host this dialogue with SDPI and Embassy of Denmark, partners whose efforts in advancing sustainable policy and climate innovation are both visionary and results-driven. Once again, before I leave this rostrum, I would like to encourage all the participants to actively contribute, those who are here and those who are online also, to actively contribute, share insights, and explore collaborative pathways throughout this session. Thank you once again for your presence today, and we look forward to the valuable discussion and meaningful actions that will emerge from this important session today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aleem Saab, for, again, setting a good tone and the scene for the dialogue. Let me just very shortly put it in a context, and then Dr. Khalid will move towards you with the sort of a scene-setting presentation on the carbon markets and why it's sort of making an increasing sense as we go forward. So, I mean, let me just sort of leave 3 pointers over here. Many of you have been seeing, I mean, there's a lot of debate that has now started going around the new tariffs, particularly the ones that have been coming from the US, and that's one very critical point, and how we sort of see it. The second, and one of the, again, very important points, very recently, since we all understand that we're under some of the policy loans, and the debate has been increasing around the imposition of carbon levy, carbon taxation as well. So that's, again, an opportunity, but at the same time, a challenge that we really need to sort of understand that with the sort of the economic pressure, with this all fiscal pressure that we work in, how do we actually go about that? But lastly, and the thirdly, perhaps the most important, is the carbon border adjustment mechanism, how we sort of align the supply chains that sort of comes in it. But yeah, I believe, see all of this linking very closely, because again, and then already we fully understand that Pakistan has a very limited fiscal space. That's not sort of argue about that. And with these new sort of positions coming in, how do we actually align themselves? And more importantly, how should the private sector actually respond to that? So with this, I believe, how do they all link to the carbon markets? How carbon market can actually serve as a very alternate sort of a revenue stream for the private sector? How to sort of go about it? So for that, let me firstly invite Dr. Khalid Waleed. Dr. Khalid is currently, he's an energy economist and is working in SDPI as a research fellow. And Dr. Khalid will be sort of initially setting a brief scene of what carbon markets are. What are some of the very key developments, especially particularly the ones that have happened in the last year, especially after the operationalization of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement at COP29? and how should perhaps also linking it very closely with this context and the scene for Pakistan as well. So with this, let me invite Dr. Khalid over to you. And if I can request the MIS team to kindly share the first presentation as well. So yeah, Dr. Khalid, over to you. Sir.
Thank you so much, Ubaid. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this insightful, impactful, solution-oriented sort of thing. I again thank Aleem Saab for his kind hosting, OICCI, the Embassy of Denmark, for supporting us in this carbon markets, how these carbon markets can lead to sustainable and equitable development, given the context that Ubaid has set. Another thing that happened in these 4 to 5 months is that the climate finance space is shrinking. Climate finance is shrinking due to different policies at global arena. You say it, the geopolitics, you say it, the conflicts. We need to find a solution that in these given these times of financial constraints, particularly climate financial constraints, how we can go about it. And I think one very impactful, relevant way forward is to bring private sector into the debate. And now private sector is directly linked to the climate finance and the climate action. So maybe carbon markets, they are one particular way forward in that direction. So I would be talking about what are carbon markets, mega trends, development, and implications. Okay, Ubaid talked about a multifaceted crisis that Pakistan and the world is also facing. Pakistan is facing right now is this 3E crisis, I always say, economy, energy, environment at the same time. We have economic constraints, we have energy constraint, and you all know that Aleem Saab also alluded to that there were floods in 2022, which affected around 30 million people, 30 billion USDs were lost in one particular year. Third, the global context, USA's withdrawal from Paris Agreement, the shrinking climate finance. Now the climate finance has become more competitive. Carbon markets, carbon projects, they are going to be more competitive. And when I say more competitive, I mean that more companies would be developing these projects and there would be buyers. And now we need to invest on high quality carbon credits. We need to understand what does it mean to generate a high quality carbon credit. If we are not developing or generating high quality carbon credits, we would be left behind and we would be less competitive in that regard. Recently, carbon market policy guidelines have been issued by the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination. We have a very detailed presentation after my presentation. And then there is a negotiation between Pakistan and IMF on resilience and sustainability facility, the RSF, on 1.3 billion USD loan from IMF. That again will cause climate change institutional arrangement to strengthen. Maybe there is a carbon tax debate in the form of petroleum levy, but we need to make sure how we are bringing stakeholders together, particularly the private sector, into, again, high integrity carbon credit business or the generation of high quality carbon credits. So very briefly, what is carbon credit? This is the textbook theoretical demand supply model of economics, where demand and supply intersects, you get your prices. Demand shows all the benefits of a commodity, whereas the supply curve, the upward sloping supply curve, it shows all the costs that have been incurred in the process of manufacturing that commodity. But there are some commodities which, when you manufacture those, causes damages to the society in the form of emissions, in the form of some social cost. So these damages are not included in the typical cost curve or the supply curve. So if you include these damages, this cost curve or supply curve will tilt upward and the new price will set. And this price is the actual social price of a commodity. We need to incorporate if we want to forward or climate agenda. So this is the basis of this new price is the basis of we say Pigovian taxes, because Pigot was the first British economist in 1920s who gave this concept that emitters should pay the societal cost of the damage caused by their emissions via an appropriate price. So AC Pigot was the first one to highlight this concept of internalizing the externality of manufacturing process. So this is the basic idea that the polluter or the commodity that is causing harm to the society, to the environment, should pay the price. And this price is, you name it, carbon tax or Pigovian tax, or if you are avoiding that cost or damage, that can be translated into carbon credit. So right now, if we tax the industry, particularly in terms of carbon tax, that might slow down the fast runners. Already hampered industrial growth in Pakistan would not be able to bear the burden of another additional tax. So what we can do, maybe carbon subsidies, but there is limited fiscal space. We are under funds conditionalities. We cannot put quotas or cap and trade or compliance market right now. We're not ready. So what is the way forward? The viable economic option is we invest, we develop an effective, efficient carbon market or carbon credit offset program, which is being developed in Pakistan. There are guidelines by Ministry of Climate Change. So this is the global context. If you see this graph, if I can use the pointer. Okay, these blue lines show that what is the potential that exists in the global markets. The orange dotted line shows business as usual. If we cannot do anything about reducing the emissions, or emission levels would be the orange dotted line. And if we want to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, we need to reduce our emissions by these blue lines. So the potential of carbon markets is the difference between the orange line, the dotted one, and these blue bars. So there is a huge potential exists if we want to achieve a net zero world by 2050. So there are two types of market, very basic: voluntary markets, compliance market. In voluntary market, you have no compliance. You trade voluntarily to avoid, reduce, or removal of GHG from the atmosphere. This is a typical market that is working particularly in developing world. Compliance market, as we see in EU and other economies, it has a regulated, mandatory, international, national, or regional carbon management regimes. There is a cap and trade, or you can bring carbon taxation debate into the compliance market as well. Under the Article 6 of Paris Agreement, Article 6 is the article that governs the carbon market. There are three different subsections of Article 6 of Paris Agreement. Article 6.2, which has been negotiated and agreed upon in COP29. It is Article 6.2, the International Transferred Mitigation Outcomes, the ITMOs, which means that if one country is striving hard to reduce the emissions and they have reduced their emissions below their designated NDC level, they can trade with other nations as well. So it is a bilateral trade from country to another country, bilateral agreements country to another country. Second article is Article 6.4, which is Paris Agreement crediting mechanism, and it would be governed by United Nations. UN manages the project and the registry and provide oversights. Another mechanism is that Article 6.8. This is a non-market-based mechanism, which means you do not trade carbon credits, but different countries, different organizations, they provide capacity building, how to reduce carbon emissions and GHG emissions. So these can be regarded as a strive, as an effort to reduce carbon emissions as well, and can be registered as a carbon credit as well. So these are three articles. Those are very relevant for the carbon market debate. What are different mega trends that are happening in last year, in this year, in the carbon market realm? On supply side trends for the project developers, Nature-based and tech-based carbon removals are on the rise. Carbon credit finance will focus on big sectoral transformation. I'll explain it a bit later. On demand side trends, voluntary demand is shifting towards compliance side. More and more buyers are trying to buy from the compliance market, from the regulated net zero claims. Compliance-driven and voluntary demand will coverage and converge and grow in the coming years. In terms of regulations, regulations are evolving and tightening, particularly if you see the EU's regime. Many countries, they are following the EU regime, and we are converging towards the compliance market. We need to expect more commoditized market with a standardized definition of quality. Crediting and authorization mechanism are becoming more complex. Digitization will disrupt project generation MRV, because MRV would be converted into DMRV, that is digitalized measurement, verification processes and the sales. So in terms of supply side, if you see between 2021 to 24, around 70% of total carbon credit revenue comes from the carbon removal projects, not the avoidance projects. So removal projects are in the business right now. And from that 30 billion USDs, around 20 billion comes from nature-based removal credit projects, and rest of the 10 billion comes from the tech-based projects. This means a very good sense for Pakistan, because if the nature-based removal projects are in the business, Pakistan being the labor-intensive country or labor-abundant country, we can invest on these nature-based solutions. You have seen that there is a good success story of Delta Blue Carbon, although there are some concerns associated with it in terms of equitability, but still it is a very efficient project, particularly if you see the northern part of the Pakistan, there is a lot potential of nature-based removals. So another thing that have been evolved is that there is a buyers club now, that different big giants that are buying carbon credits, they have made this buyers club, Microsoft giant Symbiosis Coalition for nature-based solutions, and there is another coalition known as Next Gen for tax-based solutions. So many big companies, they are buying these, they are joining these buyers club. Second thing that happened in supply side is that carbon credit finance will focus on big sectoral transformation. For example, there is a new initiative known as Coal to Clean Credit Initiative, which means you take a coal power plant, which is about to retire in 50 years or 30 years, you reduce that life and you early retire that power plant in 10 years. So for 20 years, you have avoided or reduced the emission level, and you can generate carbon credits from that as well. So there are big sectoral transformation going on as well. Aviation sector is also joining this debate of generating carbon credits. The Coal to Clean Credit Initiative, it is being supported by Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, being powered by Rockefeller. It also aims to carbon finance and incentivize the transition from coal to renewable energy. And it makes sense for Pakistan because we have a lot of investments going into our coal generation. And these power plants are very young power plants. And if we see opportunity or bankability or economic feasibility in that, we can opt for this option as well. And this will generate a huge amount of carbon credit for Pakistan. Okay, on demand side, the voluntary market will be converted or converge to compliance market. In 2024 alone, Elon Musk's Tesla earned 2.76 billion USDs from credit sales, carbon credit sales. That is an increase of 54% as you compare with the levels of 2023. Compliance-driven and voluntary demand will converge and grow, which means you can swap carbon taxation with carbon credits. For example, in Pakistan, if authorities impose carbon credits, carbon taxation, you can offset the carbon taxation with carbon credits that you have generated through your carbon credit project. So that can have another implication that we must start to think, particularly the private sector, in generating carbon credits. In terms of regulations, regulations are tightening. I mean, there is more regulations around imposing or generating high quality carbon credits. For example, California's AB 1305 disclosure law, it make it mandatory for the businesses to sort of disclose their emission levels. And then there is Integrity Council, VCM's core carbon principles. Okay, we need to expect more commoditized market with a standardized definition of quality. For example, some jurisdiction, particularly in USA, in California, they have given the legal status to carbon credit as a commodity, as a traditional commodity. So harmonized definition of quality will make it easier for the buyers to compare. Okay, crediting authority authorization mechanisms are becoming more complex. How they are becoming more complex because there are more and more nations and regions joining carbon markets. But in the long run, these shared learnings will have opportunities so that we can have shared standard as well. Again, lastly, very important, digitization will disrupt the project generation, particularly innovations such as remote sensing, AI, Internet of Things, sensors, cloud architectures, blockchain, data analytics, because they will make the verification process more easier for the buyers, for the sellers, for the regulators. So we need to invest in parallel on these sort of domains as well, so that these technologies will streamline project development and enable digital monitoring, reporting, and verification, and change of sale processes. So maybe private sector can club with the government sector to invest on these innovations as well. New development, greater standardization. We all know that Verra and Gold Standard, they provide a good amount of standardization when it comes to carbon credits, but there are more and more standards that are joining this debate, and more different and criterias and insights are being developed. Global carbon market under Article 6, we are seeing that the carbon markets, they were fragmented, they were disaggregated. Now they are converging towards a global carbon market, particularly when you see it from the lens of EU and other countries. They are developing these methodologies in terms of global carbon market. Another thing that the CDM methodologies is also being revised in Article 6.4. So the previous CDM projects, I think Ms. Sana from Ministry of Climate Change would be talking more about it, but the CDM projects, previously CDM projects, they would be transferred to this facility as well. Voluntary carbon credits and corporate climate claims, there should be clear guidance on corporate engagement in the VCMs, so that carbon credits that are generated through these claims are generally supporting climate goals, and this would be very crucial. Big sector transformation. Aviation has joined this arena. Coal to Credit initiative is there. In 2024, the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, Council approved new carbon standards, carbon offsetting and reduction scheme for international aviation. So if international aviation joins this and the shipping industry joins this, there would be more demand for the carbon credits, and the early adopters would have this advantage in this business as well. So in terms of generating high quality carbon credits, there are some core principles that project developers or buyers should keep in mind when they are developing the project or are buying the carbon credit. These come from ICVCM, that is Integrity Council on Voluntary Carbon Markets. First is, what should be the governance structure of carbon project or carbon program? It should have effective governance structure. For example, it should have effective program governance to ensure transparency, accountability, continuous improvement, and the overall quality of the carbon credits. It should have tracking system, transparency, and also it should have robust, independent, third-party validation and verification, which Pakistan lacks right now. Maybe a platform like OICCI can attract some of the independent third-party validations and verification authorities, entities to Pakistan, so that there can be a capacity building of that as well. In terms of emission impact, these carbon credits should be additional. These carbon credits should cause permanent reduction of CO2 emissions. It should be robust, quantified, quantification of emission reduction and removals, particularly based on technology, so that we can verify the reduction caused by the carbon credit projects. And lastly, no double counting, which is very important. If we follow these two principles, governance and emission impact, surely carbon credits would be a high quality carbon credit. And when I say high quality carbon credit, it means that it is aligned with the sustainable development goals as well, causing the sustainable and equitable development. For example, sustainable development benefits and safeguards. For example, let's say a company from OICCI take this project to generate carbon credits for the rural economy. In Pakistan, around 60 to 70% of the household, they burn firewood or animal residual in their household. So if there is a carbon credit project that targets the efficiency of cook stove, that would reduce the emission level as well as generate the sustainable economic development, because you will be improving the score of Pakistan in SDG 7 that clearly mentioned that population should have access to clean, affordable, and sustainable fuels at household levels as well. Again, contribution towards the net zero transition. Any project in any world, in any region, any country will cause global emissions to decline. So there should be a contribution towards net zero transition as well. So what are different implications? These are last two slides, by the way. First area, project bankability and revenue models. Any project developer should aim for clear institutionalization of Pakistan's carbon market under Article 6 VCM. Project developers can now monetize emission reduction, creating a new export-oriented revenue system as well. As I mentioned earlier, that Article 6.2, now countries can do a bilateral trade in carbon credit domain as well. Market access and international linkages. Again, in terms of ITMOs, there can be potential bilateral agreements as well that will allow private developers to access international players. For example, EU and Singapore, they are going beyond the VCM. They are using the utility of ITMOs. Digitalization and traceability. There should be more emphasis on DMRV rather than just the MRV. Sectoral prioritization, particularly in energy, agriculture, waste, forestry, and the hard to abate sector. We need to transform these sectors through carbon credits. Social community integration requirement, mandatory benefit sharing mechanisms mean developers must design their projects taking the alignment from the indigenous communities and integrate the co-benefits with the communities that will generate high quality carbon credits. Capacity building and professional networks, very important. Competitive advantage through early mover projects, particularly in 6.2 and 6.4. The companies joining this debate will have competitive advantage. Blended finance opportunities, long-term climate leadership branding. Obviously, you all know that in corporate world, sometimes branding and marketing comes very handy. But again, we should keep in mind that the greenwashing must be avoided, because again, now the focus has been shifted towards generating, again, high quality and high integrity carbon credits. So sustainability and equitability should be the core of this carbon market debate. Risk of non-compliance and market exit, failure to adhere to the international quality MRV standards, again, will cause harm to carbon market, and exclusion from the national or international registry or global platforms, causing loss of market access. Lastly, again, in Pakistan's context, if there is any carbon taxation, you can swap carbon taxation with carbon credits. So that will come handy if there is a carbon taxation, particularly for hard to abate sectors. What OICCI platform can do, there can be two major role of OICCI platform. First, from the perspective of project developers, because carbon credit projects, now they are a bit capital intensive credits. OICCI can provide capital to the local companies to to the companies so that the more carbon credit projects can be generated, financial investments can be brought in. Very particular, very important is knowledge diffusion, because OICCI is a platform that brings international companies to Pakistan. Maybe learning from the international experience, these companies can diffuse knowledge, diffuse technology to the local domestic companies, quality diffusion as well. And second role of OICCI companies can be as credit buyers. This will generate demand in Pakistan's market and will encourage more and more carbon credit projects in Pakistan. So generation of demand, ensuring market integrity, sectoral transformation. Again, these new businesses like coal to clean credit initiative, aviation, shipping, that can be a potential thing where these investments can be done. Lastly, supporting regulated net zero claims. We need to use this voluntary carbon market as a stepping stone towards compliance market so that there is a smooth and step-by-step journey from compliance market, the voluntary market to the compliance market. That should be gradual, not an abrupt sort of thing. So these were a few thoughts. Thank you so much. Looking forward to an insightful debate.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Khalid. But yes, before we go any further, let's sort of take a step a bit slow and see if anyone has any sort of questions at this stage. We definitely have. Sana, thank you so much for joining us. Sana is a carbon market specialist at the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination. And Sana will be speaking around the carbon market policy by the Ministry of Climate Change and the guidelines. She couldn't definitely join us. She is in Australia as of now. So yeah, but before coming to Sana, based on Dr. Khalid's presentation, if there are any initial questions or thoughts, or if any points anyone would like to sort of raise, so please do let us know. And just in the meanwhile, we'll also have been joined by John Paul. He's the CEO of Clean Commodities Exchange. Thank you so much, John, for joining us. And John will be shortly a bit later presenting us a case of clean cement technologies as well, right? So if there are any questions or points at this end, so please. No?
Silence
Yeah.
means.
I think, yeah, there are two at the back. Sorry?
I think if there are no questions, then we move.
I believe there are two at the back. We can just take two and then move forward. Ji, Irfan Saab, please.
Ji, my name is Irfan Ahmed. So my question is that whatever we are doing here on climate change, it has always been coming from outside. UN goals, SDGs. What have we generated ourselves according to our requirements? That's always been missed. Thank you.
I believe we can take the both and then Dr. Khalid and others can respond. Ji, sir, please.
Thank you very much. Fahad Salim from SGS Pakistan. My question was recently from the EU side, and a new regulation regarding omnibus with respect to the topic of omnibus has been confirmed in the recent days. So what would be the impacts from the existing regulations for carbon adjustment markets to this omnibus?
Sure. Yeah. So let me come to Dr. Khalid for. Yeah.
Irfan Saab, thank you so much. A very pertinent question. We always go for the donor-driven agenda, but sometimes donors, they see the long-term horizon because they have this international best experience. So if we integrate the international best experience, we can see that I can give you a past example. On the CDM, we missed the train. India, China, they generated a good amount of revenue from the CDM. So maybe we can integrate the revenue stream, particularly in terms of linking it with sustainable development, equitable development. Now we are on second part of Kuznets curve, where climate agendas and reduction in emission level, they are now linked with income levels. So macroeconomics and the climate change, now it is climate change induced macroeconomics. IMF is also thinking on those grounds. So if we want to keep ourselves in the race, maybe it is right time that we use it, the triangle of, I always say, economy, energy, and environment in one particular integrated planning, so that we have this indigenous sort of thing. But you are very right that we need to contextualize these practices, contextualize these instruments in very context of Pakistan. If we do not do this, we'll fail just like we fail in the CDM. Yeah, thank you. I think Ms. Sana can respond to your question of the omnibus. Thank you.
Sure. So with this, yeah, let me come to Sana. With this, I believe the session is yours, and as per the theme, we'll sort of be requesting you to sort of present a brief overview of the Pakistan's carbon market policy and the guidelines for trading and rates. So with this, over to you, Sana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ubaid, and thank you. I am very indebted to the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, the OICCI, and all the other stakeholders who are present here today for having me and for generating this very insightful discussion. I think it's a very important time to be having this discussion because Dr. Khalid has very abundantly made it clear that this is the right moment to catch that train. So if we have to cash that opportunity, now would be the right time. I wouldn't go into the background because I think Dr. Khalid has already covered it in comprehensive detail, the scope of the market at the moment, the latest developments in the market, the trends out there, and all of these indicators are heading in a positive direction, particularly from Pakistan's perspective. There's a lot of potential to catch the opportunity that's being presented at the moment. So, and I think the OICCI and bodies like the OICCI are aptly placed at the moment to cash these opportunities and to establish Pakistan as a high integrity, high quality market in the international carbon market. So I'd now go into a little bit of detail on the institutional and regulatory framework that Pakistan has put in place to operationalize Article 6. Agreement. Partners and our bilateral countries have said that we have a robust operational framework in place, and we're ready to cash opportunities if we can develop the right projects and take them to the market. So having said that, we have Pakistan, the government of Pakistan has notified the carbon market policy in 2024, in December 2024. And with that notification, the nationally designated authority to give approvals, host country approvals for Article 6 projects is now the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination. And you'd be happy to know that we have already initiated the process of host country approvals for Article 6.4 and also Article 6.2. So there are several projects, credible projects in the pipeline which have gone through initial assessment, and they're now eligible for host country approval. So once those country approvals are issued formally, Pakistan will enter the carbon market officially, and we would have international projects on the UNFCCC registry as well as under Article 6 cooperative approaches. So let's take this one by one in the perspective of the policy guidelines of Pakistan. And I'd walk you through the process of how a project developer can be a part of the process and cash the carbon market opportunity. So there is a template that is now available on the ministry's website, which is for the project idea note. So the first step in the process is to develop a project idea note. It is called a PIN document as per the template. So the template is a set of directions that's been given out to develop that project. So once the project idea note is developed and submitted by the project proponent, the next step in the process is to review the idea note, request additional information if it is needed from the project proponent, and then issue what is called a letter of intent. It's called an LOI. So that letter of intent is a country approval. Essentially, it's a country approval that gives go ahead to the project developer to then develop that project further. So I'll just change my location a little bit. Yeah, apologies. Right. So once the letter of intent is issued, the project proponent then gets the permission to develop the detailed project design document, the PDD document, which, as Dr. Khalid has already mentioned, goes through third-party validation. It goes through monitoring, verification process, its additionality, permanence, leakage, emission calculations, methodology calculations, the standard application. All those parameters are verified by third parties, by designated operational entities if it is an Article 6.4 project. And then the PDD is finally given the authorization through a letter of authorization. This letter of authorization then allows that project to go into either Article 6.2 cooperative approach trading as an internationally transferred mitigation outcome, or as an Article 6.4 emission reduction A6.4 ER. And by the way, it does not matter. A lot of project proponents have already posed that question, that should they go with Article 6.4 or 6.2? So the simple answer to that question, I'd like to take the opportunity of this platform to answer this, is that it doesn't matter which decision you take, whether it is Article 6.2 or 6.4, because transition is possible. And that's what has happened in COP29 decision, the latest decision. So Article 6.4 project can transition to the Article 6.2 registry as an internationally transferred mitigation outcome if the country approves that, right? So essentially, you can either trade in the UNFCCC mechanism as an Article 6.4 emission reduction, or you can trade in a cooperative approach with another government or with another entity as an internationally transferred mitigation outcome. And in both cases, the country approval would be issued by the designated national authority, which in case of Pakistan is the Ministry of Climate Change. So there's that process. It has been simplified. There's no technical additional requirement above and beyond the mandate of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So essentially, this is it. The requirements by the UNFCCC, particularly in terms of methodology, UNFCCC approved methodologies must be applied to the project. In addition, the operational entities who are verifying the project, it is advisable that they should also be the approved designated authorities, either by the UNFCCC or by third-party validators, such as Vera and Gold Standard that Dr. Khalid just mentioned. There are several other approved validating bodies, and the draft rules and regulations that the Ministry of Climate Change is now working on will give further guidelines on third-party validation and how this process can be conducted. But we've kept it very simple and flexible for project developers to do their own cost-benefit calculations, to assess the funds available, and to pick the right choice of the third-party validator for these projects. But that is a very crucial element of your project, because the third-party validation is essentially going to decide the price of the credit. And let me also say over here, this is a very important message that must go out to project developers and stakeholders, that for carbon credit projects are slightly different from regular projects, right? One cannot simply go into implementation and execution phase right away. So there's a very important component that many projects often tend to miss out, and therefore they cannot go into carbon trading later on. They fail to meet those additionality requirements. And that element is carbon feasibility, carbon offset feasibility assessment, right? And this has to be done at the stage of project conceptualization, right? So let's put it in very simple terms. There's a piece of land on which a project has to take place. First of all, the first step would be that you decide that now this project will be taken into the carbon offset trading market. So there is that thought that's already in the mind, right? First thing that would happen at the conceptualization phase, when there's nothing on ground yet, is that the baseline assessment of that piece of land would be done to assess the greenhouse gas emissions from that particular region on which the project is going to be implemented, right? So that is the baseline. The quality of the baseline would determine eventually the quality of the project itself, the quality of the credit. So that has to be done impeccably, following the UNFCCC guidelines, the methodology guidelines on that. And then afterwards, when you have the baseline assessment, the project emissions, GHG calculations, the potential for abatement, those are the factors that need to be calculated, right? So that would essentially give you an idea of the credit potential, and also in terms of the credit price that you can get from the market. We at the ministry, because we engage with several projects and also with buyer countries, so there is an idea of the prices that we can get for different projects. So that is also a place where we can come in and help project developers with that aspect. So that is essentially how the project development would take place. I'll come to another important aspect. So this is something that's already been done. The policy is notified. So we have a regulatory structure in place. We have a designated national authority that can give approvals. The process of issuing those approvals has already started. So this is where we're standing. The rules and regulations are coming up shortly, but they're just a more comprehensive version of the policy that's already existing. So their absence does not in any way hamper the execution of carbon offset projects, right? And the next step now in the process is the establishment of a world-class national registry. But I'll tell you that a lot of countries are still struggling with that aspect, primarily because the registry is a very, very complex thing, right? It has to be interoperable with all other registries of the world, of the countries which are signatory to the Paris Agreement. And it also is interoperable with the UNFCCC registry and the Article 6.4 mechanism registry. So that itself, this one aspect itself makes it highly complicated. And then in addition, there is a very complex agreed electronic format that has been introduced as per the decision of COP29 that has to be integrated into the registry. So, but it's a work in progress and we're getting there. And hopefully we'll have the registry on board within the next few weeks. So we're good on that front as well. The third thing in the regulatory framework is cooperative approaches through government to government bilateral agreements, even multilateral agreements. We are in negotiation with several buyer countries, primarily Singapore and also Norway. And we've also been indicated interest by other countries such as South Korea, right? So I think the window of opportunity here is very small because these buyer countries are not looking at Pakistan in its individuality. They're also seeking project ideas from other countries. They're seeking to build bilateral cooperative approaches with other countries as well. We are in competition with those supplier countries, right? Essentially, it's Philippines, essentially African countries, Ghana. Ghana is doing incredibly well on the carbon front. Then Thailand has recently signed a cooperative approach with Switzerland. So there's a lot of work that's going on. And one needs to sort of play proactively over here, develop a high credibility pipeline that can then be shared with the buyer countries to pitch project ideas and get a cooperative approach, right? So that is the point I wanted to come to, that the development of a high integrity national pipeline is very critical to Pakistan at the moment. And that is another aspect, in addition to what Dr. Khalid has just mentioned about the potential role of the OICCI. This, I think, is one of the critical elements. And this is why I wanted to be here today. I wanted to put it out there that I think the OICCI is primarily that organization, that entity which can help in the development of a high credibility national pipeline, which can be marketed, which can be a pitch for Pakistan essentially to buyer countries. There are several large players under the OICCI umbrella. And they have the potential and the capacity to develop, and perhaps the resources as well, to develop the type of projects that buyers are looking at, right? So that covers it on the three major aspects of the regulatory framework and our status of operationalization of Article 6. On the institutional side, at the ministry, we've now established a dedicated carbon market secretariat as per the policy. notification. And the purpose of the Secretariat, primarily the objective of the Secretariat is to facilitate project developers and expedite country approvals for these projects, right? So as soon as a project comes in, its preliminary assessment is conducted, the documentation is checked, the approvals from the provincial governments are checked and analyzed, and the emission calculations are verified and on a preliminary scale, and then the letters are issued. So at the moment, we're only at the stage of issuing letters of intent, because the project design document would then take perhaps a year, maybe 2 years for its development, and then the authorization would be issued. So we've not issued full-scale authorization as yet, but we're getting to the stage of the issuance of letters of intent. So yeah, the Market Secretariat is there to facilitate, to assist project developers. And coming to another point that Dr. Khalid has highlighted about the transition from Clean Development Mechanism, CDM, to the new Article 6.4 mechanism, which is known as the Paris Agreement Crediting Mechanism, the PACM, right? This transition's already taking place. A lot of work has already been done, and we were talking to the Secretariat, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Secretariat, and they said they've received more than 2,300 global applications for transition from CDM to PACM. What essentially is the purpose? So a lot of project developers ask that what does this transition exactly mean? The fundamental idea behind the transition is that the Clean Development Mechanism is now being phased out. It's been there for quite some time. It has been the pioneer of the carbon credit market, but it's served its purpose, and now it's transitioning to a new system which addresses the limitations of the older system and builds upon the successes of that system, right? So the methodologies that have come out from the CDM, and there have been some incredible success stories in terms of those methodologies, they're now transitioning to the PACM, the Paris Agreement Crediting Mechanism. And for project developers to be able to continue using the methodologies that have already applied on CDM projects, they have been given a deadline for that transition, right? So by 2025, the host country will now approve those transition requests. By December 2025, those transition requests will go to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and that is when the transition will materialize, would happen. So I think the information note is already there on the ministry's website. So if there are any CDM project proponents here today, it's now would be a good time to apply for the transition approval request, and that can be then forwarded to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So essentially,
if you could just sort of go, because we might have to go on a break very shortly, and they might have some questions for you as well. So yeah.
Yes. So that's that's about it from my end. I think I've covered most of the points, and if there's anything else that any of the stakeholders would like to ask, I'm open to taking questions.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sana, for your again wonderful presentation of the guidelines, what the ministry has, what the institutional framework looks like. So I believe we do have a couple of minutes because Sana will be leaving after the break. So if anyone has any questions around the policy, what the guidelines are, any modalities around the development of the carbon projects, so please feel free to.
And Ubaid, if I can just have maybe like 30 more seconds, I wanted to make it clear the context of the fee structure, because there have been a lot of questions. So if you can just give me maybe 10-ish seconds, I'd just like to go through that. Yeah. Okay, so as per the policy guidelines, the fee structure is that there's a 1% administrative fee on all carbon projects, and that fee will be collected perhaps at the time of the issuance of the letter of authorization. There's another fee, that's the 12% corresponding adjustment fee. If corresponding adjustment is applicable to a project, 6% of that goes into to the provincial government and 6% to the National Climate Fund. And then there is a 5% 5% NDC credits that are deducted when a corresponding adjustment is applied, and those 5% credits go to from the project go to meet the NDC commitments of Pakistan. So that's how it is, and these are applicable to projects in carbon market. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sana. And Sana, I hope that's okay if we can sort of also, Sana is actually the carbon market specialist at the Ministry of Climate Change. So if any of the companies, they want to sort of come in contact with you directly or the ministry directly as well. So yeah, we'll also sort of share those. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Before Sana goes, yes, please. I believe we have a question. If we can have the mic over there, we can take two. Then we'll be going towards tea break. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you,
Walaikum assalam.
Sana. My name is Janine. I'm from Zero Point Partners. You mentioned that you are in the process of providing letter of intents for certain projects and that there are certain buyers like Singapore and Norway who are interested in Pakistan. So I wanted
Yes.
to ask, what recommendations do you have for project developers in terms of prioritizing certain projects? Are there any areas, for example, regenerative agriculture, for example, that you feel that developers should prioritize that would make it more attractive to international buyers?
Yeah, so I'm just going to, I'm sorry, I just have to leave in a minute. I'll just quickly answer this one. In terms of priorities for the project, we do not have any. So all sectors are open, and it's up to the project developer to develop the idea, the concept for the project. So there are no priorities for any sector at the moment. But I'll tell you that internationally, it's carbon sequestration projects that earn a better value compared to emission avoidance projects. So if there is an afforestation project, for example, that's an area that a lot of people would be interested in getting into. So if I can, Ubaid, with apologies, if I can just take leave, maybe I can take some questions in written form on text, and then I can get back to you on that very quickly.
Definitely. Thank you so much for joining us, Sana. And we'll
Thank
definitely
you.
we'll keep on bothering you as well. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, everyone. With this, we'll be going to a short tea break and getting back right exactly at 11:45. And the ambassador will be joining us at the same time. But join us. We have a very interesting and more in-depth discussion coming in from Dr. Irfan Yusuf from the UNDP and World Bank. And that's a lot where a lot of your TB questions and how you should actually, the private sector should actually develop the projects would also come in that debate. So I believe it's on the right side of mine. Yes, please. So yeah, they'll very shortly open the door. So please do join us for the tea and we'll reconvene at 11:45 exactly. Thank you. Back at 11:45. Thank you. जाते हैं, we're sort of planning to start in the next 2 minutes. Hamza, are we online, right? चलें. Sarah? Yes, good afternoon, oh, good noon, everyone. And thank you for joining us back. I believe we actually had a very interesting start to the discussion. We actually had, just to sort of very quickly, let me take this opportunity to also welcome His Excellency, Ambassador Jakob, the Ambassador of Denmark to Pakistan. And just to sort of get a brief overview of what has already been discussed, we sort of started with a very good, first of all, a bit of the discussion that's going around the new changing developments, including the carbon border adjustment mechanism that's coming up, a bit of the discussion around the imposition of a carbon tax and levy on Pakistan, but a lot of discussion that actually happened on what is the basis of carbon markets in Pakistan, what are different policies and regulations in place there are, and how the private sector particularly, how they should actually sort of respond to this evolving market as well. So we actually had previously the presentations from definitely some very interesting interventions from Mr. Abdul Aleem, the Secretary General of OICCI, Dr. Khalid on carbon markets, its latest development implications, and Ms. Sana Rasool from the Ministry of Climate Change on what the Pakistan's carbon market policy is. Now, as we move towards the second session, we actually are again very pleased to have with us Dr. Irfan Yusuf. Dr. Irfan Yusuf is actually one of the very leading expert on carbon markets in Pakistan, and I really sort of encourage you and request of all of you, if you have any particular questions, then do ask in this session as well. After Dr. Irfan, I'll just be inviting you just in 10 seconds. We are also very pleased to have with us one of the very key leading Danish companies. We do have Mr. Adil Marvi. He's the country manager, Pakistan of Novonesis, and he's also the regional marketing manager of the Middle East and Pakistan as well. But before going to that, let me sort of formally invite Dr. Irfan Yusuf for his technical presentation, and then we'll be having the interventions from our chief guest, His Excellency Ambassador as well. So with this, Dr. Irfan, over to you.
More मुझे दे दो slide है. Thank you. Thanks for giving me this podium to talk to this August representation here. I have been interacting with the private sector. My love with the private sector starts when I started AEDB. I had been working with private sector for bringing the renewable energy in the country. We developed together the wind power projects, solar power projects, biomass projects, and now then started with the B2B transaction in the renewable energy sector. Since 2022, I've been working as an independent consultant and providing support in climate and carbon markets. This is a very interesting subject, leveraging the private sector engagement to harness the carbon market. Dr. Wahid, Dr. Khalid, and Sana, they have already provided you brief introduction of what's the carbon market mechanism are, what are the Article 6. I'll just briefly touch upon, and then I'll directly go towards what basically the private sector would like to see the project mechanisms, how what are the opportunities for you guys, how you can develop the projects, what are the integrities, and what are the corresponding adjustment and environmental integrities elements. Basically, carbon trading, it's a mechanism sort of similar to the share market. You get to register your shares, and then you start trading within that regime with your prospective buyers and the sellers. The only thing is that you can only sell the credits twice. Once means if you're a company, you're selling credits, you have sold those credits, your buyer can sell the credits one time, and afterwards you have to retire those credits. You cannot keep on selling and reselling the credits. So there's only one opportunity for you to acquire the credits and sell the credits. And in most of the cases, why the buyers buy their credits? Because they have their commitments. Either the countries, they have the commitments to comply with under their NDCs. NDCs means nationally determined contributions, or the companies who have pledged that they will be going towards net zero. Like the Shell has their long-term ambition, Anglo has set their ambitions. Similarly, multinationals, they set their ambition. Unilever have the ambition to become the net zero in the long run. So these companies, they buy your credits. As presenters from the morning, they said that there are two market mechanisms: the compliance market and voluntary market. A compliance market, it's register the projects under the mechanism that's set forth by the UNFCCC, basically United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, which is the owner of the Paris Agreement as well. Under the voluntary market projects, they register the projects following the voluntary standards like the gold standard, VEDA standard, global climate council, and a number of others. What is the basically role of this mitigation? And we always talk about that Pakistan is not the large emitter of the greenhouse gases, and we not probably we not need to venture into these kind of projects. We should only look at the adaptation side. My take has been that the world is giving more funding towards the mitigation. If we go about the climate financing windows that's been given right till to date, 93% of that fund has gone towards the mitigation side. Only 7% has gone to the adaptation side. Why are we missing that boat? Similarly, why we miss the boat for the CDM? Why don't we realign our thinking, realign our prospects, realign our project development processes, where we target the mitigation, but at the same time, we get the benefit of the adaptation as well. Likewise, if you go for the waste management project, the waste to energy project, we have adaptation segment as well and mitigation segment as well. So think like those kind of projects in days to come. I won't be touching more on Article 6.8 because Article 6.8 is a non-market mechanism where you can synergize with within the country, or multilateral countries can join together to create a non-market mechanism like the policy instrument to leverage the climate finance. It's not a market instrument, like it's not carbon trading, it's not carbon tax, it's not any that instrument that basically drives the market. So goal is to facilitate the emission reduction, adaptation, and climate resilience. And there are three principles under the Paris Agreement, which they always talk about. The first one is the sustainable development. Second is the environment integrity. And third one is the community development in overall. Why private sector? And why private sector really matters for these kind of interventions? My take is private sector is a leader. Private sector is a game changer. The investment comes from through the private sector. It doesn't come from the public sector. The role of the public sector should have been to provide us enabling environment for the private sector so that they can run the businesses and they can look at the bigger picture, how they can bring the investment, how they can negotiate better the prices of the credits, how they can leverage the better quality of the carbon credits with a permanence and additionality concept. If we talk about emission profile, 30%, more than 33% of emissions are coming from the private sector side. Whether they use electricity, whether they use the fuel, whether they use the transports for transportation, this all accumulate into around 33% of emissions. But at the same time, only fashion industry, the textile industry, they alone contributes around 8.5% of the GDP. The 60% of the exports are coming from the textile sector. They have industrial jobs. They're providing 45% of the industrial jobs. So they're contributing in economic development. We have to now leverage the private sector to expand more so that they can sustainability should come into the private sector. If the sustainability won't come, of course, private sector will fly away from Pakistan and they will not be operating in this mechanism. There are a lot of regulatory regimes are coming in like CBAM, National GHG emission reduction commitments. Now, it has been realized, the federal government has realized two things. Number one, all the project developments and activities, they have to be executed at the provincial level, not at the federal level. Most of the sectors have been devolved to the provinces. But at the same time, investment has to be done by the private sector. So climate action at the private sector matters a lot for countries like Pakistan nowadays. For the enabling environments, of course, we have the regulatory regime available like the PIPA Act, the CCA Act, the climate change policies, in the national electricity policies, the NDCs, the national energy efficiency and conservation policies, but at the same time, the famous carbon market policy. These all are regulatory arrangements that have been set in place. Now the regulations are also coming in. They will move further strengthen the as an enabler for the carbon markets. Globally, just voluntary carbon market standards are there. Article 6.4, Article 6.2, they have been now kicked in. They provide the enabling environment for private sector to look at how they can leverage to the carbon markets. But at the same time, when you develop the carbon market projects, you can access the climate finance as well. There are a lot of windows available for the accessing climate finance for developing your project. Likewise, you can approach to GCF, you can approach to Mitigation Action Facility, you can approach to IKI, you can approach to Danish Fund. There are a lot of funds available which you can access those and you can develop your projects sustainably. Their supports are being provided like Spark. They're providing the technical support for project development to the private sector. Their FCDO is also supporting some voluntary carbon market project. Danish MSC with STPI, we are conducting this kind of support. GIZ is coming up with emission trading scheme program. They will be leveraging all these stuff for carbon market development. World Bank is also coming up with the project of the market implementation. So a lot of intervention and support is coming up. This is in pipeline, already implementing, just to support the private sector to get them ready for the carbon market projects. Now it's up to you guys to approach these facilities, get your benefit, and come up with your project pipeline. What more is needed? Policy incentives for carbon pricing. Sana Rasool has already indicated that a lot of incentives that government has already provided, but I think there will be more incentives that private sector will be looking at. We can negotiate, and this is the right time for the private sector to negotiate with the government as well. If they want private sector investment, certain incentives should have been in place. Likewise, there is no clarity at this stage what will be the taxes that will be deducted from the revenue earned from the carbon market. You should be negotiating with the government that for at least for first 10 years, there shouldn't be any income tax or sales tax. Finance accesses of Article 6, GCF, volunteer markets, there are MRV system. We have to set in place the MRV system. There are two kinds sort of MRV system that is needed. Number one, at the project level, you have to report all your emissions and emission reductions in a very transparent manner. But at the same time, there should be a MRV system at the federal level that would have to gather information from all the facilities at the centralized place and then report to UNFCCC and other platforms. This is a very important element to set in place at this stage. This will help you maintain the integrity of your credits, which is very important element. Certifications like ISO 14001, HEEG Index, Zecotax, capacity building and recognition grid industry as a leaderboard card. Something just to highlight you, what are the opportunities you can look at as private sector in your industrial value chain, in your development prospects, starting from, I have categorized as 6 different packages which you can look at your projects, where you can fall in and how you can build the projects to market as a market project, starting from the raw materials. If you're a manufacturing entity, you can look at for the textile industry, you can look at the organic cotton, recycled fabrics. For energy industry, you can look at green hydrogen, blue hydrogen. You can also look at biochar coming out from the biomass, regenerative agriculture if you are working in the agriculture sector, climate smart infrastructure and agriculture practices. For the manufacturing, you can look at infrastructure, waste heat recovery, innovative technologies, solar efficiencies, bringing in efficiencies, electrification, hydrogen to reduce our emissions. You can also look at waterless dyeing. You can also look at the finishing of the project where you can reduce their emissions. In packaging logistics, you can venture into the EVs instead of the conventional vehicle technologies. You can switch over to vehicles which are not run by the electric vehicles or hydrogen-based vehicles, so that you can reduce your carbon footprint. In retail sales, you can do the eco-labeling, rental schemes, or resales. End of the life, taking back the product, recycling, waste management, compostables. So these are the interventions you can look at and develop the project for the carbon market and bring in the innovations like IT-based solutions, um, creating a legitimate the end-to-end solution where you can attract the market, not physically, but you're connecting your clients with your manufacturing facilities digitally. So these are the kind of interventions you can look at, and you can develop those market mechanisms. Just to give you an overview of how the market is growing, it's an exponential growth we have seen since starting from 2030. Sorry, 2020. You can look at how the market is going on. It's projected that carbon credits is going to be a huge sum of market in days to come. It's already have crossed 2 trillion, and it's going to be reaching towards more than 5 trillion in 2035. So far, the volume of transaction from Pakistan is very less. Under the Paris Agreement, we have only one project, which is the Delta Blue Carbon. There's no any other project registered so far. We want a project pipeline coming out of it. I was just talking during the tea break session that the buyer was here in the country. They came here on invite of the government, on invite of the private sector, but as we always face these kind of a dilemmas, that were not able to drag the actual crux of and the physical projects out of the market. Now time is that we should have a bankable project pipeline available with us, which we can start trading, negotiating the projects with different entities or buyers and sellers under Article 6.2 and Article 6.4 as well. Article 6.4, as already has been explained in detail, this is a voluntary standard which will register the projects under the UNFCCC. Whereas Article 6.2 doesn't bind you that you should only have an Article 6.4 project. At this stage, they are accepting the projects under the VCM, they are VERA, Gold Standard, and GCC. You can register projects. But in days to come, after 2030, we have the pretensions being the carbon market players. We feel that later on, all the buyers will require that the project should be registered Article 6.4 project. That means these compliance market projects will get the priority over the voluntary project market. Before that stage comes, I think this is the right time, and this intervention is very timely where SDPI and Danish Embassy is putting up effort. You should start looking at these projects and develop within the window of these 5 years and get your project registered, executed, and start selling the credits. Because after 2030, we feel because most of the targets have not been met so far, there will be a lot of more commitments that will be coming out of it. And at that stage, we will have to revisit most of the policy mechanisms. And before that position arrives, we need to catch the train. How this transaction basically occur? Country B, basically, like if we give an example, Switzerland, they have the commitments. They have to reduce their emissions, but because of their pertinent conditions, they're landlocked country, they don't have the opportunity at the ground level to reduce their emissions. That means they have to meet their demand of emission reduction, their NDC, through some external buyers. Country like Pakistan, we can be the hot sellers for those credits because we have the opportunity, we can invest, why we can invest? Because we are developing the infrastructure, and in developing the infrastructure, we can always look at those technological interventions which can be innovative, they can support emission reductions. In that case, the important element under the carbon market is that I'll explain it later as well, that your project financials should indicate that the revenue from the carbon market will improve IRR of your project. It will make this project bankable. We have to prove this element in this scheme. If we are not proving this element, and this is a mistake we always do in our all transactions, we always look for the bankable projects. Private sector always look at the project is making minimum 12 to 13% IRR, then they go into those projects. But for carbon market, you have to show to your buyers that without carbon revenue, your market is not making a sense in economic terms. It's not earning a IRR or ROE. But it's just possible to do this project if you improve your IRR with the revenue coming from the from the carbon market. Now you have to negotiate what level of carbon price you're going to take to the market. Whatever carbon pricing you will now take to the international carbon market will set a baseline for a country like Pakistan. Delta Blue Carbon already has set a baseline for $25 for the market, but there is a lot of room to increase that, and we can push up to $50 per credit, provided the value of the project is very high. There are two types of projects. Under certain classes, the buyers, they require the corresponding adjustment. What is the corresponding adjustment? I'll give you more detail on that as well. But if the country who is the buyer requires the host country approval as well as letter of authorization that these credits will not be used by the host country, rather the buyer will use those credits in its NDC. This is called with corresponding adjustments. If the corresponding adjustment is given, then you can have option of transfer of that NDC with adjustment to different mechanisms, the voluntary offsetting, CORSIA, and bilateral arrangement under the Article 6.2. These credits, their value is quite high as compared to non-authorized credits. Like if I give you example, if you are having a hydropower project, you're selling your credits, if you don't have authorization, you won't get more than $4 to $5. But if you able to secure authorization from the government, you can always talk about a 4 times price. So it always makes a good sense to have authorization. That's why the policy that the government has announced, it gives you an ample opportunity to get the authorization of those credits. For non-authorization, why these credits are being sold? Because countries like some of the countries, they do not require NDC targets, but they're procuring those credits, or there are domestic market options available, or companies like Google, Apple, Shell, they're procuring the credits to get their net zero emissions where they don't require that country-specific NDC targets are met with. So in those cases, they don't require authorization and they procure the credits directly from the project. This is a typical example how the financial flows occur in a transaction. I'll give you an example quoting how this transaction happened under Article 6.2 between Bangkok and Switzerland. Bangkok, they developed a project for the transport sector, and their emission reductions were targeted around 500,000 for till 2030. They negotiated the project with the private sector from the Switzerland, and IKI supported them in the whole transaction for the piloting and all these activities. IKI is an entity. This works in the Switzerland. They support under the climate financing window. Once the project was designed, executed, the Bangkok side, they sold the credits to the private sector, and the private sector paid the money to the private sector in Bangkok. And the government entity, they deducted certain fees which they were required to deduct as per the policy mechanism, and revenue then came directly to the private sector. Why the private sector got the revenue? Because private sector is the proponent of that project. They're executing, they're implementing the project. Eventually, they get the revenues. What the revenue share of the government was, the government fees which Sana Sool was explaining to you in her presentation. These are the fees which the government will be deducting out of those, and just all the revenues will be coming to the kitty of the private sector. There's certain definition within which basically targets toward the environmental integrity, which is one of the major slogans of the Paris Agreement. As Khalid Wahid was indicating in his presentation, there are certain attributes available associated with that. The project has to be real. Unfortunately, there have been some instances under the CDM regime. The projects were conceived, they were registered, but at the end of the day, they were not real. They were not existing. That's why they say that there should be a real project developed, executed, and that can be verified through independent auditors. The emission reductions should be measurable, and for that purpose, in order to make the transparency, they require that there should be an MRV mechanism set in place. Additionality, I explained as earlier, your project financials should indicate policy, technology, financials. These are the three important elements where this project will be meeting the removing all these three risks. If these three risks are mitigated, your project carries a value of the additionality. It should be a permanent project. Anybody at any time of the life of the cycle of the project can go and see the project's operational and in working. If it won't be there, then there are a lot of penalties associated with it now. If the project won't be there permanently, even after the 5 years this project is vanished, if you won't be able to satisfy it to your buyer or the country, that is why the project is vanished, why the projects are not permanently there. If that situation arises, there are a lot of penalties coming into that. Again, also the verifiability and traceability are linked to that thing. This is the project cycle. I would like to show to this as well. The green blocks are the responsibilities of the government. The black or dark blue are the responsibility of the private sector, and the red are the responsibility of the auditors, the third-party auditors. It starts with the designing or mitigation activity. We oftenly do practice that we design the project, carry out the feasibility studies, and start implementing the project. And once we venture into the implementation of project, then we start thinking of the carbon markets as an additional revenue stream. In carbon market, this doesn't work. You have to conceive your project as a carbon market project right from the date of inception of your project. That's why Sana Rasool was indicating that you have to develop the PIN. This project idea not comes when you start looking at the project, start thinking of the project. Under the volunteer markets, you get a flexibility that if even you are under construction and during the feasibility study, you just hit it, the nail that you will be looking at carbon market to improve the viability, they can look at the project. But under the compliance market, it's no way. You only can get your project registered under the compliance market if you have designed it at the start, the feasibility stages. Once the project is designed, the next stage comes out as a validator. The project is designed, registered to a certain standard. That standard, like UFCCC or Vera or Gold Standard, they assign a third-party validator for your project. They come and visit your project. They verify your claims. Once the validation is done, then you can request for ITMO authorization or registering of your project. After authorization and registering of your project, then you can start implementing the project on site. After implementation, when you claim that the project executed, COD is done, like there are some wind power projects, developers are here, they have achieved the CODs. Once the 1 year cycle of that COD occurs, then you submit your application to the relevant standard that issue the credits to the project. At that stage, independent verifier comes into picture. They come and visit your project. They verify your claims, emission reductions claims. They compare it with your application and original design. And afterwards, they give you a number that this number of carbon credits are eligible for the project. Then these are issued for the project. After issuance, you can sell those credits into the market. ITMO authorization is, of course, is a case that the government takes leads. The international conventions, they require that there should be one single entity who should be handling this. And because of that, the federal government has taken the responsibility to designate Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination as the NDA. They will be evaluating and authorizing the ITMOs as per the process that has indicated by Sana Rasool. They will be managing the carbon registry. They will be managing all these reporting channels and executions. Three important elements, as Dr. Khalid also indicated. I'll emphasize more on these three elements. Measurement, reporting, verification. These should be robust for your project so that you can show your integrity of the project. Transparency, whatever information of the projects there, it should be transparently available. It should be made online, and there shouldn't be any data fudging. Governance, compliance with the governance structure and the Paris Agreement. So this is it. Private sector can be a climate leader and carbon market leader in Pakistan, not just a contributor to GHG emissions. And you have ample opportunity to contribute in every aspect, wherever the business you are doing. And I think this is right now the time for the private sector to come and play its role. If any question, I'm available to answer. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Irfan. I believe that was one of the most comprehensive presentations on how the private sector should sort of engage. Now, before going further, again, just like Dr. Irfan mentioned, if there are any questions, and Hamza, if you can also show if there are any questions from the online participants, once again, just to sort of mention that if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A box, and we'll sort of pick it right from them. So yeah, let me read that question. But before that, if there are any questions from, yes, please, if we can actually have a mic over there. Any questions for from Dr. Irfan regarding the private sector engagement process? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Faizan. I have a question that as a buyer, whether in the voluntary market or in the compliance market under Article 6.2, why would I want to buy an high-tech carbon credit instead of a cheap one in the market, from the market?
See, my interest is that I have, first of all, if I'm the buyer, I would have made some commitments internationally. I would have reported, let's assume I'd say I'm the representative of Shell. And I have given a long-term net zero emission commitment till 2050. And to manage that, I'm doing efficiencies within my system, as well as I'll be procuring credits from the international market. Since I have given the commitment, I have to report something internationally. I would always go for those projects and those credits which are permanent, which can be verifiable, which have high quality. Otherwise, what will happen? If the project goes wrong in any way, it will not only make my commitment negatively impacted, but it will have two other consequences. Number one, it will put a wrong impression over my credibility as an entity globally. Secondly, it will crash my stock value.
Yeah.
And I won't be, I'll never take that risk because for these two particular reasons, I'll always go for those credits which are reliable, high quality, and verifiable. So this is the
yes, thank you. And Dr. Irfan, just to sort of mention one question that's really interesting we have received online is that do projects need to meet some minimum size to be authorized by the government, or a project or any site is valid for authorization? And this another question, perhaps you can take two at a time. That's based upon the revision of the net metering buyback rate that was under the discussion in some past days. But still, given the potential of solar in Pakistan, is there any possibility, is the government of Pakistan considering mechanisms to trade solarization related carbon credits and share the benefits with net metering consumers to mitigate this impact? So perhaps this is more of a question in the way that perhaps if any of the small scale, these plants can sort of combine and if come under a government scheme. So yeah, over to you, Dr. Irfan.
Regarding the size, again, this is a commercial call. Being your entity, you have to make a decision that you're going into a transaction. What is the overall transaction cost? You have to bear the cost of a consultant to develop the project. You have to bear the cost of verification. You have to bear cost of validation. This whole cost, they accumulate around more than $200,000. If you're making that much of effort and that much of investment in realizing the project, you should look at that this, at least you should be earning $2 million out of the project in the life cycle. Now this determines the size of the project and carbon credits you should look at. Economically, the international experts say that there should be at least 50,000 credits coming out of the project. But you can always look at the small projects, 10,000 credits, 25,000 credits. You can always look at those projects and they have been traded, they have been registered projects. At the level of the federal government, there is no any limitation. at the international buyer streams, there's no limitations. There's transaction costs come down with the size, if the size of the project is so small. But again, it all the economics and financial decisions that makes a decision being the private sector developer. Second, for the net metering, I had been discussing this prospect with the government, with the CBPA, with the distribution companies, that they should go for instead of blocking net metering, they should look at the carbon market as a prospect. Why? Because there's a very valid reason for the government to apply for this for the carbon market, and I don't think so. This makes a sense for the private sector, because individual project, individual installation, it will be difficult for the people to register the project, but the government can make a business case out of it. Why? Because it's hurting its financial return under the overall power market mix, and they can always make a case right now as well, that if they have to move from 4,000 megawatt net metering to, let's assume, 10,000 megawatt from net metering, they will be losing this much of the financials, and this will be hurting the overall the financial stream of the power sector. However, carbon market can make a business case to improve the viability of the power sector, and with that case, they can always look at the carbon market assessing.
Sure, thank you. Before just 1 second before coming to Dr. Khalid, I believe there is one last question from. Oh, okay, sure. From Mr.
Okay, just
Adil.
to add on Dr. Irfan's point, there is another type of a business in carbon credit, that is aggregation business, which means one aggregator can establish, and that aggregator can club these small projects together and make a big project out of it.
Yeah.
Maybe solar, rooftop solar and net metering, that can be done through that aggregation process.
Yes.
Secondly, discos can be that aggregator as well. So in that way, on one front, discos are losing business due to net metering. On another front, they would be selling credits and offsetting that loss. So that would make an economic sense.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So yes, with this, over to you, Adil sir. Please, your question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Irfan. I think very insightful presentation. Just wondering that if I'm an existing entity, what are some of the skills, or what are some of the, does it have to be like a separate business unit that needs to be developed in order to be able to start have those expertise and start trading credits in the market? And secondly, does this mechanism in Pakistan allow for greenfield projects?
The first choice is greenfield projects. Brownfield projects, they usually gets a very limited attraction. With the greenfield projects, you can venture into the removals, and with those kind of interventions, you can always attract the market in a very convincing way. With the brownfield project, it again makes the economic calculations that whether that project makes sense to you or not. Like if you're a textile mill operator and you want to switch from conventional system to the latest technologies, now you have to weigh down whether it is better to have an altogether new factory, or you would like to retrofit your existing system. If that makes economic sense to retrofit only, you can always go for that project, and you can always venture into that thing. For that thing, you don't require setting up a new company or new legal entity. You can do with your existing entity, but again, it will be your decision how you will park the revenue for that project or that activity. Would you require a separate reporting, separate accounting, separate all thing done, auditing as well for that project, just to show to your buyers and your register entity that this is a credible project being executed, trading is done, the financials, audition, all the things done. Second, since all of your information and material for that project will be made public, would you like that whole of your company's information should be made public or not? or you would require the project specific information, and that company specific information should only be public. So that's again a decision that the private sector has to do.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Irfan. Yes, please. Just yes, we can take both. Yeah. 5.2 million. If we can, since they're online participant, if we can have the mic as well. Yeah.
This is Mukhtar Karim from State Bank of Pakistan. We have 5.2 millions of SMEs in the country, and only 0.177 million can get finance from the banks. If individuals like SMEs or micro enterprises, if they start these kind of projects, can get these credits, carbon credits, how their projects can be feasible to finance by the banks or some other institution, or they can sustain their cash flow from such projects. I think this is the main pillar of the question for the employment generation, for exporting our country, output generation. These are the areas.
Yes.
What are your point of view?
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Dr. Irfan.
Yeah, this is a very, very important question, particularly keeping in with the SMEs. And I believe there's a lot of potential for decarbonizing the SMEs as well. However, the issue with the SMEs is cash availability. And to manage cash, it's always difficult to convince those small entities to venture in a project. For doing that, what Dr. Khalid was indicating, aggregation is the best option to look at it. Likewise, there is a pottery industry in Multan. And if we help them revamping the manufacturing process, improve that process and reduce their emissions, entity like one of the entity, they can act as an aggregator. They collab all those entities' interventions into a programmatic approach. And with that program, they can went into the carbon market. Not only to the carbon market, but this project can be a very best suited for the climate financing as well. So you can look at both of the options.
Yes.
What I have come to know that there is some intervention going on. There are certain entities who are working with the private sector entities for the decarbonization, and they want to push Green Climate Fund. They're trying to bring around $150 million for that purpose, and they will be helping the process streamlining. And end of the day, if there would be a carbon emission reduction potential comes out of it, the private sector can always go for the trading in the carbon market as well.
Yes,
So you can have a
yes,
multitude of
thank you,
benefits.
Dr. Irfan. But just in
Just-
interest, yeah, Dr.
Just
Khalid, very
one thing,
briefly, yeah.
this is where the role of regulator comes in. The State Bank of Pakistan, the upcoming green taxonomy, that can resolve the definitional aspects and incorporate carbon credits so that the banking sector can provide financing opportunities for these project developers. So integrating green taxonomies with SMEs plus the carbon crediting framework, that can be a very beneficial thing. So taxonomy
Yes.
can provide.
Thank you,
definition.
Dr. Khalid. Yeah, I'll just have to stop the questions for a bit, just in the interest of time. We'll very shortly be going towards Ambassador of Denmark, His Excellency Jakob. But before that, let's also sort of very briefly hear from a Danish company here. We're once again very pleased to have with us Mr. Adil Marvi from Novo Nessis. It's also again a Danish company, and Adil sir will be very briefly talking a bit about the initiative and how they're sort of looking at it, and then we'll very quickly move towards Ambassador. Adil sir, if you can very briefly join us on the podium.
Thank you very much. So my name is Adil Marvi. I am a country manager for a Danish company called Novo Nessis. For those of you who don't know about the company, just let me briefly introduce it. Novo Nessis is a company that was formed with the merger of two other Danish companies, Novozymes and Christian Hansen. And back in 2024, this was termed as the largest merger in Danish business history. What do we do? Sorry. Am I audible now? Yeah. So what do? We sell enzymes and we sell microbes. We call them biosolutions. Just as an example, the reason that today if you buy bread and that bread stays fresher for longer over the shelf life, 3 to 4 days, it does not have staling. It's because it was processed with natural enzymes that enable that shelf life. Or if you're having lactose-free milk, it's because there's an enzyme inside that has removed the lactase for you to be able to digest the milk. But that's not all that we do. And how are we relevant to this topic of carbon markets and carbon trading? So if you look at globally, I mean, the mission of Novonesis is it has always been to reduce carbon emissions. It has always been to become more sustainable, provide solutions that can reduce greenhouse gas emissions. As per a report by Copenhagen Economics, it is estimated that biosolutions alone can reduce 4.3 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions. That is 8.8% of the total emissions globally. So that is the role that it can play. But how is it that you may ask? So it has applications in different industries. So for example, today in the US, also in India, if you look at the fuel mechanism, it is petrol that is being blended with ethanol. Ethanol blended fuels can reduce up to 10% of the total consumption of fuel. That results in reduced greenhouse gas emissions, but that is at the use phase. So probably not at the trading phase, but in the trading phase, if we have current entities that are running on existing energy sources, then those energy sources can be replaced by biofuels. Then if you look at, for example, the textile industry or the starch industry that produces rice glucose or wheat glucose, they have the opportunity to use biosolutions and operate their plants at a much lower level of energy consumption. So again, creating that reduced amount of greenhouse gas emissions. And that is where in the B2B side, our technologies become really relevant. Now, we have been in Pakistan. We have been working with the Pakistan since the year 2000 with many industries, textiles being one of them. But then there are opportunities. The processes of waste to energy and the processes of biofuels, there's a huge opportunity space. And I believe that if we look at these angles and apply biosolutions to the to the different entities, then our story about being an active player in the carbon market becomes even stronger. Yeah, that's all from my side. I've been speaking without a PowerPoint.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adil Saab. So yeah, wonderful interventions and best of luck for the work. So with this, let me sort of invite His Excellency Ambassador Jakob Dennerf, the Ambassador of Denmark to Pakistan, for his keynote. And we would request you if you can join us at the podium, please. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you. I mean that I've been here now for almost an hour and listening to the debate and the presentations. And normally I would be a little bit nervous now to take the scene because this is quite technical and quite complicated stuff, right? But exactly on this theme, I'm quite comfortable. Before being a diplomat, I was actually a carbon trader myself, and I've been working in that game for many years. So I'm quite familiar actually with the topic today and the discussions you are having. So hopefully I can also contribute a little bit to that today. And then I'm always comfortable being with people like you who try to make a difference when it comes to fighting climate change. So I feel I'm very much in a room with friends today who have the same ambitions that I have. Oops. That we need to make some action. We need to make a stance to fight climate change. SDPI, we have, of course, worked together. This is quite dangerous, I would say. Maybe we put it like this. We have worked together for quite some time now, and I'm very proud to. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you. OICCI, thank you for co-hosting today and being in this wonderful surrounding is always a pleasure in itself, and fighting climate change is not something that the private sector will do or something that the public sector, the government will do. It is something that needs to take place in a public-private partnership. So that's also why the setting today where both the private companies and the governmental institutions and academia is joining hands and forces in order to make a difference in this. And then, of course, I'm proud that Denmark plays a small part in this in Pakistan as well, and being close partner to SDPI and a number of other institutions and players that makes a difference. So that is a good thing for me. Pakistan and climate change and energy sector, it's in many ways Pakistan is a country of paradoxes, right? So looking at Pakistan and the environment here, you have world-class wind resources, you have world-class solar resources, you probably have the best hydro resources in the world, and then of course you have abundance of biomass and waste that could be turned into energy. And then on the other hand, you don't really have a lot of oil. You don't really have a lot of coal, and using oil and coal for energy, of course, we all know this super expensive, right? You have to buy it. You have to use all your foreign exchange for that. It's super dirty, right? It pollutes the atmosphere and creates smog everywhere. And it's also politically very sensitive because when you buy it from other countries, you become dependent on them. And if they don't like you at one day, they just stop, and then you are in a deep shit, right? What did Pakistan decide to do? I mean, you have all the renewable sources. You don't have the fossil fuels. Of course you go for fossil fuels. It's a good decision. No, it's not. I don't know how that happened. I mean, how did Pakistan become basically fully dependent on oil and gas, which you don't have? You have all the other sources, but you don't really, use them. It's not the best decision in the world, honestly speaking. But right now there are some right movements taking place. First of all, you have a quite ambitious policy now on terms of renewable sources, saying that you need to be relying at least 30% on renewable sources when you reach 2030. And then at the same time, your electricity prices has become so expensive. So it's a good deal for most businesses to try to see how can we be more energy efficient and use less energy. Or maybe put up our own solar panels or wind turbines and so on, so that we can also become green. And we can tell our business partners in Europe and the US or wherever they are that we have sustainable supply chain, not relying that much on oil and coal. So it's also becoming super good business to go green. What we have promised Pakistan in our political relationship with Pakistan, we have promised that we should help you with that. And what can we bring to the table? I don't know whether you know that, But Denmark is actually the greenest and most sustainable country in the world. And we have been voted that, for many years in a row now at the international climate conferences and in other forums. Denmark is the greenest country and the most sustainable country in the world. We have basically succeeded in completely transforming our energy sector from oil and coal to renewable sources. And there's another hit list that we also top, and that's the hit list when it comes to happiness. Denmark is always in top 3 when it comes to the happiest nation in the world. People are quite happy in Denmark. And you know what? These things go together. It's much easier to be happy if you wake up to a clear sky and you wake up to fresh air and you don't wake up to headaches because of you are facing smog every day. So it goes together. So of course, Pakistan will also be a much happier nation if you really succeed in going green. It has taken 50 years in Denmark. When I was a kid, we have a super deep and expensive crisis in Denmark. Our politicians said at that point, it's not good enough, we need to go green. And they have done that, but it has taken 50 years. So it's not an easy thing, it's not something you do overnight, obviously. We succeeded in that, and we are a very small country. We are only 5-6 million people. So I guess it's even, easier in Denmark than it is in a country like yours with, a quite big population of, the 5th largest population in the world and a very diverse population. But it is possible. And it is possible because you have all the resources to do it. You have all the wind, you have all the solar, you have all the biomass. And we don't have that in Denmark. So when it's possible in Denmark without a lot of resources, it obviously is possible in Pakistan with all the resources at hand. We see a lot of movement right now. We see a lot of the bigger groups and companies in Pakistan setting up solar power plants, setting up wind turbine parks, setting up biomass plants, and so on. And that's a good development. Definitely, it's a very good development. It would be even better if it was coordinated a little bit more, and it was part of the national transmission system and the national grid. But you need to start something, and I think it's a good trend that we are seeing now that a lot of the bigger groups are taking action now. In Denmark, we have also learned that energy efficiency is good business, and you can do energy efficiency without losing on your competitiveness. So insulate buildings, use the most efficient when it comes to energy in your production, equipment, machinery. All these technologies are available. I can sell them to you with Danish companies, and Novo Nordisk have a few of them as well. But it is possible. The solutions are there. And when you save on your energy bill, you become more competitive. You can produce your products cheaper. And you will be more attractive on the international markets because the buyers in Europe, they will love having a partner in Pakistan that has decided to use less energy and become more green. In Denmark, we have also learned that carbon taxes is a very sensitive issue. And most companies, they are not all that fond of more taxes. But we have learned that if you do it wisely, you can nudge the right technologies and you can nudge companies to move in the right direction. So carbon taxes is not about taxing more. It's about taxing wisely. So taxing the dirty industries, taxing those companies who are not pioneering and spearheading a development towards sustainability, they need probably a little bit of a push, and carbon taxes can be an important tool in that. In Denmark, we have also learned in 50 years that what it takes is long-term planning, long-term commitment, and a very strong political support. It's not very good if you change your government every second year, and every time there's a new government, they change the policies, right? I mean, if you want investments to come in, and you want people to invest in renewable energy that might have a payback time of 20, 30 years, whatever. I mean, you need to have very firm commitment that that the investment environment is conducive and long-term, right? I have a long list of Danish companies who want to invest in Pakistan. We have all the technologies, and we have a lot of money when it comes to that, because we also know it can be a very good business. But not in Pakistan these days. I mean, you need to, have a more consistent investment framework. And if you develop that, right, investment will flow in. Trust me. And then you can also benefit from the carbon market and the carbon credits. Carbon credits, that's not a money machine. It's not just something you can just sell some carbon emissions. No, it requires a lot of framework conditions as well, a lot of legislation, a lot of bureaucracy is associated with it. But it's doable. Of course it is. And Pakistan should go in that direction, right? And the last thing I would like to say in terms of what we have learned in Denmark in going green, that is that you can never succeed unless the mindset of the population changes, right? It's not something that someone else will fix. It's an individual responsibility. It's an individual responsibility of the person, and of the companies, right? You need, I mean, it's not like you can just wait for someone else or to come and fix it. I mean, it's up to you, right? You need to take a stand. You need to commit. You need to commit to make a difference, right? And for private persons, it means that, don't throw your waste in the street. Take a public transportation if available instead of using fuel-consuming cars, right? Or take a walk to the office instead. Plant a tree whenever you have a chance to do it, right? And make demands to your politicians that your country needs to develop, right? It needs to be competitive. It needs to be innovative. So take a stance, make your demands to those who vote when there are elections. And companies, go green, right? Change your fuel. It might be a little bit expensive. It might require some investments, but in the long term, trust me, it's very good business. Insulate your buildings, right? Energy optimize your production. All these things are good business in the long run. And for the government, we already talked about that. Long-term commitment, creating conducive environment for investments, and then foreign direct investment will follow. So that's what we have learned in Denmark. Pakistan, very, very different country, and there are many different ways of going green, but I think some of these fundamentals would also, apply to Pakistan. And one thing is for sure, it's not for fun. I mean, going green is not something that we like to do. We can make that decision maybe if we are in a good spirit that day or whatever. I don't know whether you're aware, but climate change is actually killing the planet. It's not an option, right, to fight climate change. Otherwise, there will be no planet for the future generations. And we are all occupied these days with war in different places in the world and tariffs, and I don't know what we are discussing or what dinner tables, right? But there's a much deeper problem in the world, and that is climate change, and we should not forget that. And if you are sometimes forgetting it, then Denmark and I will keep on saying it because it's super important for us, and that is what I would like that Denmark stands for. And when you think about Denmark, is a country that are here to support you in being more sustainable. So hope you will work with us, and you are in good hands with SDPI and also OICCI and a lot of other good people. So thank you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Excellency. That was wonderful summarizing of the discussion and how significant the whole theme is. So, but before going to the next session, we do have, I'll request Aleem Saab to please come on the stage, and also requesting Ambassador Dr. Irfan and Dr. Khalid. And Andrew, if you could please also join us on the stage. The OICCI would like to sort of present a memento to the Ambassador. So, and Aslam Saab, please do join us on the stage. And sorry, sir, yes, मैं आपका नाम भूल गया. Please do join us. And also, yeah. Zainab Saleha, please. Yes, please. Zainab Saleha, please. ये भी शीट ले चलिए. ये शीट भी ले चलिए. And yes, on behalf of Embassy and SDP, I would also like to sort of present a shield to Aleem Saab. Yes, please. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And yes, with this, we'll go back to continue our discussion. We do have one very interesting case study to be presented by John on the clean cement technologies. John will be coming to you very shortly, but before that, we do have a very brief, two very quick topic introductions. So for that, we're very positive to sort of close it in the next 30 minutes. But yeah, before that, if I can request Hamza to please display the presentation of Zainab Naeem. And yeah, Zainab and Saleh, I'll be requesting again to, yeah, keep it a bit of on the private sector focus. So over to you, Zainab.
Once again, it's almost good afternoon, everyone. I'll be making my presentation brief, and I have no intention of, explaining everything, but just touching upon certain key aspects that are very much important, and also some buzzwords that matter a lot for the private sector companies. So next, please. Just basically, this is a summary of what has been explained by Dr. Irfan Yusuf, Dr. Khalid Waleed, and other colleagues, that a carbon credit represents reduction in emissions relative to that would have happened without the project. And the validity of a carbon credit project depends on 4 essential criteria. And this is where exactly how your carbon credits are based. So the project that gives rise to the carbon credit needs to be additional. That is, the reduction in emissions would not have occurred without the incentive created by credit revenues. And the other one is difference between reductions in emissions the credit represents and the baseline needs to be quantified. So the quantification has to be there when you're talking about carbon credits. It has to be quantifiable. And for that, you have to conduct the assessments, the GHG assessments, before initiating the projects, as Dr. Irfan highlighted. And then the emissions reduced or removed by the credit must not later re-enter the atmosphere. So again, double accounting, and the emissions are unable to re-enter the atmosphere. So there is a whole traceability and transparency aspect attached to it when we talk about high quality carbon credits, and that is how their prices are also determined. And the credit project needs to be independently validated. Of course, it has to be socially and environmentally accountable. Next, please. So why companies use carbon credits? Now, this is some basic statistics. Almost globally, 3,600 plus companies are listed that have pledged net zero targets. Some have pledged decarbonization targets. Ideally speaking, net zero is never achievable. But if you're setting up targets, at least you're able to achieve certain commitments that gets aligned with the climate agenda. So net zero is a very idealistic thing that is there. Decarbonization is practical, but again, it requires a lot of different and difficult procedures that are sometimes not possible for the companies in developing countries to achieve. But and that also depends upon your socioeconomic conditions. But it's always advisable to set up targets at least, and then meeting those targets to enhance your steps and your procedures in the value chain so that you are able to meet your commitments at least at national level, and that will also be defined in context of your global commitments if your companies are engaged in global businesses. These companies represent 9.3 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent, mostly scope 1 and scope 2. Scope 3 emissions are not covered by these companies. Scope 3 emissions are beyond your value chain sometimes, and and now scope 4 is also there. So scope 3 and scope 4 are not even being achievable by the companies in most developed regions of the world. It's very difficult. And that's why science-based targets, and there are so many things that are becoming controversial and that are also becoming a sort of, barrier for the companies and businesses to achieve their existing targets as well. So it's a challenge. Economic efficiency of carbon credits, emission reductions can be costly, and it can take almost up to $500 per ton of carbon dioxide equivalent in hard to abate sectors like cement and steel. And then the mitigation hierarchy. First, you have to prioritize the direct value chain emissions when you're talking about developing projects. You don't have to foresee how you're going to be including scope 3 as while having discussions when we talk about science-based targets with different companies. They're always talking about how do we measure scope 3. First, you need to assess your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions and come up with assessments on how those emissions can be reduced before moving beyond scope 2 towards scope 3 and scope 4. Offset residual hard to abate emissions with high quality carbon credits. In hard to abate sectors, any carbon credit projects that has that can reduce carbon emissions, its quality and its price will be higher because it requires a lot of difficult procedures and steps to determine which projects should be there in context of hard to abate sectors. Next, please. All right, so offsetting residual emissions, Hamza, I can't see the title, I think, because of the formatting. So basically, this is the regulatory role of international regulatory regime. So first is allowed in SBTi aligned net zero claims, removal credits only. The science-based targets initiative that is being followed by many companies and businesses globally and even in Pakistan to achieve those standards and certifications. Yeah, in corporate climate action commitments. So SBTi aligned net zero claims, they offer an opportunity for removal credits only, and they're focused on engineered removals like direct air capture. And again, this is about your scope 1, scope 2 emissions. Then transitional use during decarbonization. If you have decarbonization commitments for compensating current impact while pursuing deep reductions, again, your direct emissions, not scope 3, scope 4, and it helps buy time for a broader net zero transition. Now, you see, if you're able to measure your scope 1, scope 2 emissions, report it properly, and then come up with EMPs or environmental management plans on how you will be reducing those emissions first, then you will have time to set up your targets that are focused around net zero, or broadly speaking, more idealistic targets. First, the commitments should be on what is achievable. Then VCMI, it's Integrity Council for Voluntary Carbon Market Initiative. It's a non-profit organization that sets international standards and certification for carbon credits. So VCMI claims code promotes transparency with silver, gold, platinum tiers. They have tiers, gold being the highest and most positive tier, and then gold, platinum that they offer to different companies who want to establish carbon credits projects. They have two requirements: high quality credits only And that verifies that the emission scoping is aligned with 1.5 degree C reduction pathway. And that is never your net zero target. That could be your decarbonization target, but that has to be your scope 1, scope 2 target. Emerging best practices. Now, the best practices that combining science-based reductions with credible carbon credit purchases, greening your value chains, and invest directly in or support liquid, well-regulated voluntary carbon markets. Initial stages, it's good to engage in VCMs or voluntary carbon markets for different businesses. And then if your country is coming up with policy and compliance, it will become more easier to follow that because there's more potential in compliance compared to the VCMs. Next, please. Next, please. So tax-based and credit use. Now, there's a lot of talk around carbon tax and, compliance market. As I said, there's more potential. So globally, prospects for integrating high-quality credits. Now, EU Commission, they are exploring future inclusion of high-integrity removal credits in the ETS system. But it's going to take time. As I mentioned, it's not expected before 2040. But in the meanwhile, they are going to be coming up with more stringent regulations on how they can curtail your scope 1 and scope 2 emission trajectory. I'll be mentioning those later on. Carbon credits and carbon tax regimes. Some countries are also using those credits to offset their tax liabilities. For example, Colombia, South Africa, Singapore, they're using the revenue being generated from their credit markets to offset their tax liabilities. And then current demand under carbon tax schemes is small, but it's growing. And this is especially in context of developing countries. And if more countries adopt hybrid approaches, so there's potential when you have hybrid approach, tax plus VCMs. Next, please. So ETS, emission trading system, this is a compliance market, globally recognized market-based tool that caps emissions and enable trading of carbon allowances. Engaging in carbon markets help companies meet compliance obligations by 2 steps: purchasing allowances or credits for residual emissions and reducing cost of compliance. Now, for example, EU ETS, China has the largest ETS, California cap and trade, as Dr. Khalid highlighted. Carbon border adjustment, I think there has been a lot of talk around CBAM. So I've just shared these 3 points that are most relevant. Applies carbon pricing on imported goods to avoid carbon leakage. Initially the sectors are hard to abate sectors that they have included, but textiles is going to be the sector again. Your surgical goods is going to become part of it. So exporting sector from Pakistan is going to be coming under the CBAM regime. Next, please. So CBAM has been discussed a lot, but I wanted to focus on EU Eco Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, the ESPR regulations. This is a buzzword for many companies, but this is very much there now. They require low emission, energy efficient products, and they have introduced digital product passports for traceability. Now, what they do is to establish minimum sustainability requirements. For example, the products that is coming into Europe, it has to be energy efficient, durable, repairability should be there, and recyclability should be there. And for these 4 aspects, you have to map your entire supply chain and provide it to them in order for them to allow your product in their market. Then it applies to products like textiles, electronics, batteries, furniture, steel, cement, and chemicals as of now, but they are going to be including more sectors later on. A digital product passport, to trace the sustainability performance, you have to provide it. It will contain all the details, sort of a label through which they can track your supply chain, and then pushes corporate due diligence for environmental impacts of value chains, of course. So companies investing in carbon credits, removals, and circular economy practices, they can enhance product sustainability and meet design criteria, reduce life cycle of carbon footprint. Again, if you are managing your greenhouse gas emissions in an efficient way that is being released directly from your value chain, you will not have a lot of implications, the negative implications, but you will also have opportunities. How? Next, please. Now, especially in context of Pakistan, as Pakistan, we are a major exporter to European Union, especially in these sectors. These regulations will directly impact the businesses. Pakistani exporters will need to meet eco-design standards. They have provided those standards, but ideally, what should be there is Pakistan needs to come up with its own eco-design standards in order for businesses to start complying with those standards and then to meet this international criteria as well. So this is a recommendation that we are proposing. This includes providing product-specific environmental data via digital product passport, and then MNCs, especially those sourcing from Pakistan, they will demand more transparency. So it's going to create a challenging situation for the businesses in the country. It opened doors for opportunities are also there for the firms to invest in eco-innovation, green product design, and sustainable packaging. I know there are so many companies who are already transitioning towards sustainable packaging, but again, because EPR is not there, so at national level, the reporting mechanism, because it's not there, it's not easy to track and map the value chain of how it's, sustainable sourcing is there or not. Companies that align early can become preferred suppliers for global brands, and businesses adapting circular economy practices can generate credits easily. Dr. Irfan Yusuf also highlighted certain projects and areas where businesses can engage. Next, please. There are some other standards, but they are also aligned with why businesses should integrate carbon credits into their supply chains. They provide verifiable emission data in context of IFRS S2. Financial institutions are supposed to, provide this reporting under the standard. So if they are engaging in context of supporting SMEs who are scaling up their solutions, they have an opportunity to provide more transparent reporting. Science-based targets, I think I've explained it. And then science-based targets also talking about beyond your value chain. So now they're using this BVCM instead of scope 3 and scope 4. This is the same thing. There's not much of a difference. Next, please. Again, why businesses should engage: reputation and compliance. International global reporting standards require you to engage in carbon markets. Revenue streams. This is a sort of revenue stream, but only if you engage properly by avoiding the double accountability, following all standards of transparency. Innovation and competitiveness. Of course, if a company is engaging in carbon credits, it will have more competitive edge and market access. Next, please. Yes, I'm wrapping up. These are some of the sector-specific opportunities for packaging, textile apparel, circular economy, NBS, and financial institutions. I think now you are also bound to, report the ESG as well. In some cases, although it's not under compliance, it's voluntary. But again, it has an opportunity where under these sectors, you can go about establishing or initiating projects that can, through which you can engage in carbon credit program. So nature-based solutions, circular economy, waste-based solutions, afforestation, these have a lot of potential. But again, it needs to be done in the right manner. Next, please. Way forward. What should be the core principle for corporate companies? Prioritize deep in value chain emission cuts first. Carbon credits should support, not replace, corporate decarbonization. This is a very important principle only if you are able to comprehend what I want to say here. Next, please. Takeaway. They're not a license to pollute. They're a tool to go beyond your own footprint and accelerate global climate action. With this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zainab. Yeah, hate to interrupt you. That was really interesting. Yeah, please.
Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. So since you mentioned, you were talking about ESG and, scope 1, 2, 3, 4, avoided scope, has that officially been recognized by GHGP? Avoided scope has been recognized? Has that been? Yeah, avoided scope, which is scope 4. Has that been officially recognized?
No.
It has not been, right?
No.
So that's exactly my point. So that's an avoided scope which has not been. So scope 1, 2, and 3 are already incorporated. 4 we are still waiting for that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. So yeah, thank you so much. We have, before coming to Saleha, because I believe John has a bit of a strict deadline. So we'll just, John, are you with us? John Paul from Clean Commodities Exchange. Yeah, John, thank you.
Yes.
Apologies for keeping you a bit on a hold, but John has a very interesting, John belongs to a Clean Commodities Exchange, and they have a very interesting brief case study on carbon negative clean cement technology. So John is currently the CEO, and John, we would also sort of request you to let them know, because we do have the cement industry here with us, but even going beyond the cement, fully understanding that you work on other sectors as well, looking at the agriculture, looking at the water management sectors as well, and you do sort of represent an exchange. So with this, John, over to you, but just in interest of time, I'll request you to sort of keep it in like 7 to 8 minutes, and because we'll sort of very quickly be going towards, after Saleha, going towards the conclusion. Yeah. So with this, over to you, John. Yeah, thank you. Let me know if you need to share the screen. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. You already can. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for including me in this opportunity. We're very excited about the backdrop for Pakistan. We work across a lot of different geographies, and we see a lot of opportunity and just great government support for Article 6.2. I'll briefly just take you through a quick background on CCE and the opportunity. So we're really here to help scale climate technologies that can address 45% of global emissions by 2030. You know, that's our goal. That's what we're focused on. We love to sit at the impact where you can connect capital with great technologies that have a great environmental impact, but are also economically and have a social consideration. So we want to use carbon credits as a way to uplift communities. We sit in the middle, and our main goal is we just want to help climate tech accelerate faster. So we work with climate technologies, we connect them with government so they can get Article 6.2 backing. We handle all of the application, the paperwork, so they can get that authorization. We engage with the government on their behalf to make it really easy, simple, and seamless. And then most importantly, we work with buyers of the carbon credit market, but also external financiers. A lot of the external market want to get access to the benefits and the financial yield provided by carbon credit projects. And so we help turn those benefits into cash that can then be used by projects in a non-dilutive way to fund scaling and implementing their solutions. Right now, we have a $500 million pipeline of Article 6.2 carbon credit projects. We work on everything from providing free clean water to communities that are currently boiling water to treat dirty water conditions, to solar energy, to clean building materials like clean cement. We're actually working on a clean water project right now in Pakistan with Sequoia Global. And we would also like to introduce other technologies into the market that can benefit the industrial sector and really help in this transition to make sure Pakistan can get access to the best leading technologies. What I'll do now is just take you briefly through carbon negative cement from a company called Partana, which is one of our partners. They're out here in the UAE. They're a globally recognized cement manufacturer. Partana, just at a very high level, they're in the sustainable building material category. They focus on a solution that has a very high curing efficiency. So a lot of the emissions are created in cement by having to require a very high temperature to treat and create the cement aggregate and the mixture. But the great piece about their solution is their carbon footprint is negative, meaning over time, their cement actually gets stronger by absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere. So it's really the only carbon negative solution on the market. But the piece that's really important to note about their technology is because it absorbs CO2, it gets stronger. So it has exceptional strength. You know, there's a whole segment of concrete cancer where, you know, the concrete decays over time. This solution is actually much better than what's available in the market. But the most important thing, it's easy to integrate. It replaces all of the existing products that you might need in a concrete setting so that it can be integrated into supply chains, but also building materials very, very simply, because we know it can be a hard overhead to implement new technologies. And so that's why we've chosen to highlight Partana. It's very simple. You know, typical concrete has filtered water and clinker cement. Clinker cement is where most of the emissions are created. Partana cement, the only thing that changes is you can use any water source, so it can be a dirty water source, but also the cement mixture itself is carbon negative and low emissions to be produced. The main component is the cement's going to get stronger over time. So typically you have calcium-based cement. It's very carbon intensive, requires virgin materials, fresh water. It's damaged and corroded by salt, and it needs to be offset. By swapping it out with their magnesia-based cement solution, they're able to introduce that carbon negative benefit. You can use waste materials in the mixture. Most importantly, it can be made with wastewater, and it gets strengthened by salt over time, and it produces these offsets. So the magnesia actually chemically reacts with carbon dioxide, and that is what enables it to have the properties of getting stronger, but also absorbing carbon, very similar to how a tree absorbs carbon over time. They have very simple product types. They have the availability to integrate their solution into pavers and tiles, blocks for building, precast environments, but also conventional cement foundation sidewalks. And there's also the ability to incorporate it into decorative, more artisanal type of products. So it's very easy to integrate into your existing cement supply chain and industrial uses when it comes to building materials. What's really fantastic about these concrete carbon credits is they're very simple and valuable when you generate them. Just by using their mixture across any of those product types, you immediately generate the carbon credits. They're instant. So a lot of carbon credit projects, nature-based solutions require time, for example, for the trees to grow, so they can get to a state where they're absorbing the maximum amount of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere every single year. With this type of solution, the credits are generated instant once they're put into building materials. The other component here is it generates two types of carbon credits: removals and avoidance. Removals are very, very valuable in the market. So 1 ton of this concrete mixture can generate anywhere between almost half of a carbon credit to 1 or more carbon credits just by integrating into the building materials. Now, the carbon credit value for this type of solution is very high. In the Article 6 market, it can go for as high as $40, but in the voluntary market, there's significant demand for these types of avoidance building materials, and it can go for as high as $180 per credit. What this does is it provides builders with an opportunity to generate new revenue that can subsidize the cost of integrating this solution into their building materials, but most importantly, can provide a new way for them to generate profit in a very low margin business. Now, 1 ton of concrete can generate anywhere between $18 to $180 of additional revenue. That's revenue that the business can use to reinvest in community benefits, to lower the cost of the building materials, but most importantly, to ensure that they can afford to adopt this new technology. Now, this sounds fantastic. It sounds amazing, but a lot of the time we get questions of, well, how new is this company? How durable has it been used before? So I just want to take you through a couple of examples. So a case study that they've delivered homes in the Bahamas with their solution. They've built over 1,000 carbon negative homes in the Bahamas. This product was specifically for homes that were about 116 square meters. In this context, they produced 54 metric tons of carbon avoidance and 128 metric tons of carbon removal throughout the life of this project. But it can also be used in luxury settings, and this is really where the business has found a lot of success. We've helped place them in other luxury building contexts. For example, in the Fontainebleau Luxury Resort in Las Vegas, they use pavers to deliver 1,765 square meters of pavers, again, having significant benefits from the carbon avoidance and carbon removal. If anyone here is interested in learning more, a key piece of, we want to bring Partana opportunity to Pakistan. So the best way to do that and make sure the price is competitive is to ensure a minimum order quantity size over, a term of a customer of about 20,000 tons. And if any builders are interested, they can reach out to Kazar at Sequoia, which is our local partner. I'll share this presentation. I'll share contact information so that you can learn more about this. And then locally, we're working with Sequoia Global as our main project developer here in Pakistan. So any inquiries or anything like that, we're happy to work through and address your questions or anything like that. Thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul. That was really interesting. We do have a number of cement industry sitting in. I will make sure you sort of pass on your information to them if they want to sort of coordinate. And other than that, I believe John will also be sort of sharing some details around the work you do on the water management side. That was in the one we actually had in the last meeting. That's also something really interesting, the work that the Clean Commodities Exchange is doing as well. So thank you so much. If we have any particular questions for, yes, please. John, we do have a couple of questions. Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Mohammad Ziaullah. Can you please tell me in detail about what do you mean by the magnesia base cement? At which stage you incorporate the magnesia?
You muted, John. You muted. Yeah.
Thank you. Great question. So the magnesia is used when the cement mixture is created. So it replaces the clinker product that is typically used in the aggregate. So it's mixed. It can come in bags. It can come in final product. It really depends on what the building use case is. It can be everywhere from the premix to the final product, but it's integrated as part.
An additive? It replaces the
Yes,
clinker.
Correct. It is an additive that is a replacement entirely for the clinker. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you need any further details, I believe, John, I'll connect you too, so you can perhaps take this technical discussions
Yes.
forward. So now, but just extremely sorry, we would really love to take the discussion forward, but just in interest of time, we do have a very, very brief 2 to 3 minute concluding presentation. And then we'll be moving towards quick remarks from Dr. Abid and definitely the final concluding from Andrew. So let me sort of request Saleha to just very briefly give the final sort of trends and the key pointers that they have to be taken forward. But yeah, Saleha, just very briefly.
Yes, thank you so much, Ubaid. I think from the start of the day, we have discussed all the trends and things. But right now, I'm going to, display some of the success stories the globally and Pakistan have, and how it can be replicated in context of Pakistan, and how the private sector could come in and government sector could come in to play in these things. The carbon market matters for Pakistan in case of we are developing the NDCs. So it helped us to achieve the NDCs. Also, we are going to achieve different SDGs through it. And also it come and mobilize the finance in Pakistan, which support the climate action. So this is the basic, matters why carbon market matters for Pakistan. The trend number one is the VCMs are expanding, and it's going to be reached by 2030 by 50 billion for tech, aviation, fashion sectors. So more countries are coming into play in these sectors. So it's not about integrating or talking about just trees. It's integrating into carbon into global value chains. So that's the trend number one. The trend number two. It's not working. Article 6 is operationalized, which we have discussed earlier after COP28. So internationally transferable mitigation outcomes, Switzerland, Thailand, Japan, and Bangladesh have been working on that. So this is the right time that Pakistan can now enter into this deal and can offset their credits and receive finance and technology in return. So that's the trend number two. Next. Trend number three is integrity and standardization. To stay competitive, we have to work and adopt the globally accepted monitoring, reporting, and verification standard to ensure the transparency and buyers' demand of high-intensity credits. So that's how the credit price and the buyer confidentiality could be maintained, and Pakistan should look into that perspective as well. Next, please. Trend number four is digital innovation. Digital tools like blockchain, satellites, and IoT for faster, credible carbon verification. This can be a game changer for Pakistan as well, especially for the forestry and waste projects. And that's need to be leveraged, these tools, for faster, more credible verification. So that's the trend number four. Next, please. Trend number five is nature-based and just transition credits. That's focused on nature-based solutions and premium value for social co-benefits. Delta Blue is a great example for that, but the future is even more inclusive. Projects that empower women or indigenous communities can attract higher credit price. So that I talked that when we are including more SDGs, the credit price, the project price could go higher. Next, please. The success story number one is through EU ETS. They have, cover 40% of EU emissions, and their carbon price is 90 euro per ton in 2024, and it's going to be increased by 2030 as well. Pakistan can learn how this similar compliance system could be adopted in the case of Pakistan through tailored approach. Yes, next please. Ghana has similarly developed an Article 6 pilot projects, especially for the solar cook stoves. So Pakistan should also look into that, how this governance system can follow and decentralized approach can be adopted in case of Pakistan. So that's a success story that could be tailored in case of Pakistan. Next, please. Pakistan right now don't have, wanted to build a carbon registry. We don't have right now. So I will tell you later on that how we can work on that and what should be the more inclusive and tailored approach in case of Pakistan, and how, the launch of capacity building trainings and sectors should be prioritized in that case. Next, please. Vera has identified, which we have talked earlier, that Vera is the accredited agency. So they have added new methodologies, especially for the rice cultivation and methane reductions. So Pakistan have a lot of potential for that. So that's the trend number 7. Yes, next, please. Vera also have biochar and soil carbon projects, and Pakistan has a good space for that and to explore these projects as well. So I think private sector have a lot of opportunity in that case as well. Yes, next, please. Next, please. EV is a success story. Pakistan is going to launch its electric vehicle policy soon. And we have to look into the similar case that Thailand has done. They sell their credits to Switzerland, and they started their focus on the EV taxi fleet. So they generate a lot of credits. Next, please. And Pakistan how can replicate it? We can start with the major cities who have a lot of, the buses, the transport that is ICE based. So we can develop a MRV tool for that, and we can incentivize the charging infrastructures, concessional finance schemes for the charging infrastructure for the EVs to make it happening in Pakistan. Yes, next, please. Delta Blue Carbon, which is a great example in the Sindh. So from this, the Sindh government has achieved a considerable, credits and a good amount, and it's also involved the community involvement, and it's a long-term sustainability product. So Pakistan should expand this through, the Balochistan coastline has a great potential for that. It's underutilized, and we can increase the forest cover. It can integrate with NDMA's disaster risk reduction strategies, mangrove reduce cyclone impact, and explore bilateral funding through Japan, UAE, Germany, or nature-based offsets. Next, please. KPK has also a billion tree tsunami project. So it's also a scalable model. We can use payment for ecosystem services, models with local communities to ensure ownership, forest management units, how to manage, plan the forest at what area. So that can be done through drones, GIS mapping. So that's the very good point that, the forestry projects are easily to measure through GIS mapping and all that. And we can also partner with local, research think tanks, universities to assess the carbon stock and verification. Next, please. The success story, one of the Lahore methane capture project, they have utilized the landfill, solid landfill that was used and prepared, and the methane capture from that has been utilized into useful processes. So they have generated a lot of carbon credit, and they also, in addition to that, they have developed a solar solar park in there, and also a parking and walking track for the people. So that's a good, inclusive project where a lot of things are happening. And similarly, with the Mahmood Booty landfill development, they also have generated a lot of credits to that. And that's a similar project that, that's a potential for the Sindh as well, that they have a lot of, waste. So they can, if they have landfills for that, so they can replicate these type of things in that perspective as well. Next, please. Yes, next, please. So we currently, Pakistan have lacking the registry mechanism, which should be, I think, the next step for the ministry as well. So there are the three examples I have taken: South Africa, Colombia, Indonesia, how they have, used the process for the registry. So I think that would be a good point if Pakistan can make the registry. There are three things that globally are doing. First one, the government is looking to the government is just looking for the registry. They're counting things, everything. But a second one is hybrid mode, which has been utilized by Colombia, in which the government and the private sector, they are tracking the things and all that. And third one is, of course, the globally Vera or other accredited agencies. So these three things, three main examples that main countries who have made their registries. So finally, I would say next, please, that how Pakistan can make a strategic phased approach for the registry. Firstly, institutional and legal foundation should be the priority. Energy efficiency framework or registry development set roles for Ministry of Climate Change and other entities, ensure that Article 6 is readiness, and designate the lead institution assigned that a national carbon market body as a registry operator with technical support from accredited agencies. The phase 2 is an infrastructure design where we establish the central registry, develop a digital platform where we can credit the issue, trade, retire, and public access for transparency. And then the credits will be verified through gold standards and Vera, and after that they can include the tagging of ITMOs into it. And finally, the phase 3 approach is implementation and scaling, and for that purpose we need to develop an accredited, verified entities built nationally on monitoring, reporting, and verification portal. Launch the pilot projects that we need to figure out that which are the pilot projects that need to be added in, like the cements, textile, and renewables and agroforestry I have mentioned. Engage the right stakeholders that create their capacities so they can develop the projects, and auditors for that as well. And enable domestic and international tradings, allow trading among local companies for CSR and offset ESG. And finally, governance and oversight, establish an oversight committee with independent experts, conduct periodic third-party audits for the registry functioning. Next, please. So finally, the final conclusion for the Pakistan is leverage proven models. For example, Delta Blue, KPK Forest, Lahore Methane, to build a pipeline of credible projects, create a national carbon registry integrated with Article 6 reporting, engage private sector and banks to finance climate smart investment, invest in our MRV systems, digital monitoring, and skilled project developers, and from strategic bilateral deals for ITMOs transfer, Japan, Switzerland, UAE are active. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Saleha, especially for having you rush through the presentation as well, which that's for the presentation and all this. This was the final presentation from our end, and with this, we're coming towards the very and so let me just very quickly give a quick points of discussion of what we discussed to Dr. Abid, and after Dr. Abid, I'll be going towards the final concluding from Andrew Bailey. So Dr. Abid, we sort of started with a bit of an introduction of what carbon markets are, its latest developments and implications for Pakistan. And then with that, we moved on to discussion around what the Pakistan's carbon market policy is, what are some of the very key contours of its guidelines, its rules that were presented by the Ministry of Climate Change. And then from Dr. Irfan Yusuf from UNDP, we actually had a very wonderful and detailed engaging session with the private sector on modalities of carbon trading and project development and what key considerations should be there. Definitely, we're very honored to have with us the ambassador of Denmark, His Excellency Jakob. And in the second session that happened in the afternoon was the initial discussion around global carbon market economy, where we sort of discussed the private sector investment in response to some of the global regulatory movements that have happened. And in the very end, we actually had one of these case studies on carbon negative clean cement technology that we discussed, and followed by the last presentation, which we just witnessed from Saleha. So with this, I'll be coming to you, Dr. Abid, just to very quickly introduce. Dr. Abid is currently the Executive Director at DPI and also an advisory member at the Asia Development Bank Institute and also former advisory member of the Conference of Parties 29 session. So with this, over to you, Dr. Abid. Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Ubaid. First of all, my apologies for not being able to join you in person. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending from where our online panelists have joined us today. I'll start by offering my gratitude and thanks to Mr. Abdul Aleem, Secretary General of the Overseas Investment Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and all other members of OICCI for agreeing to host this workshop in Karachi and giving us an opportunity to learn from you, to interact from you, and to get a direct pulse of what industry and industrial leaders they think of this very important development that is taking place. I'm also thankful to the Embassy of Denmark and the Ambassador Excellency Jacob Lenhoff for supporting this work and for supporting this conducting this workshop, joining hands with us. And last but not least, the team of STPI, which has been very dedicatedly working on this particular issue. This is the fourth of series of workshops and interactive session that our team, which is present in Karachi, they are doing, and I'm really proud of their good work. Now, coming to the topic, of course, while whole world is talking of these roller coaster tariffs of US administration, it's not only the US tariff that the world is worried about. There would be another set of tariff, and this is carbon tariff, either in the form of carbon taxes or in the form of CBAM, the European Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or in the form of carbon levies. And it is rightly so, because if one looks at the latest studies, only 2 billion ton of carbon dioxide per year is being removed from the atmosphere by human-led efforts. So whatever efforts that we are making globally, only 2 billion tons of carbon dioxide is being removed, mainly through reforestation. Now, if we want to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial level, which is, of course, sort of a very distant target for now, the rate of extraction need to rise to 10 billion tons per year by 2050. So right now it's 2 billion tons, and it has to be increased to 10 billion ton if we want to stay below 1.5 degrees centigrade. If we want to stay below 2 degrees centigrade, then this rate of extraction has to be increased to almost 5 billion tons per annum. And that would take these carbon markets somewhere around $500 billion worth of market. Now, this is just the scope of it, and we need to actually do it because the global warming, as you are observing sitting in Karachi, industries are observing sitting everywhere. It is not only a direct threat to our livelihoods and food security, but a direct threat to existence of our future generations who do deserve a better future, our children and their children. If one doesn't want to be very pro-environment and perhaps follow the suit that President Trump is taking right now, There is another urgency that we need to look into in the context of Pakistan. And this is carbon tax or carbon levy, which most probably would be part of next federal budget, as Pakistan has now aiming to sign this resilience and sustainability facility, $1.3 billion for next 28 months with the IMF. One of the benchmark would be this carbon levy or carbon tax. I don't think to begin with it can be a direct carbon levy or carbon tax, because we still don't have any mechanism to measure the emission and to tax them. Most likelihood it would be indirect levy, whereby it can be either part of diesel or petrol prices, or it can be part of electricity prices. Thinking the more their use of fossil fuel, the more it has to pay. So it's may not be the polluters pay principle, but this carbon tax is then linked to the next very important development, which is carbon border adjustment mechanism. I'm sure my colleagues would have been discussing this CBAM with you. Now, one of the provision with the CBAM is that if our industry, which is very heavy on carbon emission, if our exporters they want to avoid paying carbon tax in euros in Europe, they would have to pay some sort of carbon tax or carbon levy in Pakistan. And that's where it really becomes extremely important. As per the CBAM exposure index developed by World Bank, Pakistan's electricity sector is around 1.44 times more carbon intensive than the EU average. It means that from post 2026, when this CBAM would be fully unrolled, and most likely many sectors, including food and beverage and textile, they would gradually be part of it. Our exporters to Europe, they would have to think of either buying some sort of carbon credits, and if they are not buying these carbon credits, they would have to be paying some sort of carbon levy and carbon taxes, for which, of course, we have to get prepared. And when I say we, it's not only the government, it's the private sector that has to get prepared. If we want to support government, I think one thing that we can do better is to start preparing ourselves, and that would also help government. The final point that I want to bring here, and I'll conclude with this. 2 days ago, there was this very important statement from African Development Bank President, Mr. Akinwumi Adesina. So Akinwumi Adesina, after looking at the carbon markets and carbon credits in Africa, he's saying that land grabs in Africa is being replaced by carbon grabs in Africa. And the case that he's making, he's saying that the cost of getting permits for this carbon trading in Europe, they can be as high as 200 euro a ton. And the same permit in Africa can be obtained for 3 euros. And African countries are losing a vast area of forest, vast area of land to what he's calling carbon grab. Now, the reason I'm highlighting it here, that if we don't focus on indigenous carbon markets today, the Pakistani industry and Pakistani private sector, what would happen that most probably many of these carbon credits would be bought by global players, then compelling our exporters to go and buy these carbon credits from Malaysia and Indonesia and Brazil and many other in euros and dollars. So today is an opportunity if those of us who can be early birds, they can get benefit of carbon markets and carbon credits in Pakistan. And the good thing is that now we have carbon market and carbon pricing policy in place. There can be room to improve it. STPIs are already contributing in and giving our suggestion while the rules and regulation for carbon markets, they are being prepared as per carbon policy. But I would like to invite the private sector to look into those that policy propose if there are any proposal for these rules and regulation. The ministry has put that policy on web, and they are asking for suggestions to improve the rules and regulations. Already, according to the World Bank, there are at least 75 systems which are working throughout the world for this carbon credit purchasing and carbon markets. And we need to see that how well we can devise our rules which can then support our industry. And this is where the opportunities and this is where the challenges. And the challenge is that if we will not be able to capitalize on the opportunity, not be able to get benefit of it, then of course, a few years down the road, we don't want to be one of those like African Development Bank president who will say that some global players, they grabbed our carbon credits and carbon markets. So it's better to act today than to regret tomorrow. My team, and you might have realized now, they are extremely competent in their field. They know what they talk about. They're very much here to support you, not only in capacity building, but also in project development for carbon markets. We'll be more than happy to assist you. We think this is a struggle and an opportunity where all of us, we need to work together. Thank you very much once again for giving us this opportunity and for sharing our thoughts with you. Over to you, Obed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abid, for highlighting the exact conclusion that needs. So with this, just in interest of time, let me invite Mr. Andrew Bailey, the MD of BUS Pakistan and the member of OICCI Management Committee for the final conclusion from their ends. Over to you, Andrew.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm obviously very mindful that I'm keeping you between prayers and also lunch, so I will keep it very short. It's obviously been a very complex topic, but I think we've had a really good depth and breadth of speakers explaining the carbon markets. And it's obviously not the end. There's going to be continual topics. I think what struck me today was the societal cost of product is over 100 years old. Now, is it going to take us another 100 years to get to this point? Where are we going in the next months, the next years? And this is really where I think as an organization, as the OICCI, and as the private sector, we really need to work on. We heard from Dr. Irfan, the private sector can be the game changer in this. And I believe certainly that is our responsibility here in Pakistan as multinational companies. And also as the OICCI, I think we are the catalyst for this change. Comprising over 200 member companies, contributing more than a third of the government revenue, we have a very important role to play, and it's that catalytic role. On one hand, I see really, really great opportunities in Pakistan. I've been here now 2.5 years. On one hand, I see there is a big need. We heard about the paradox of Pakistan having access to all the renewable raw materials, but using mainly fossil fuels. So there's a very big need. It's a very vulnerable country. There's that competitive issue that we have, whether it's competing with Bangladesh in the textile sector for exports. We have to do something, and we have to do something quickly. But this is where, for me, I get really excited, because I think we have the right ingredients in our hands right now. On one hand, we've got the need, Pakistan needs something, but also we have the leading players. We had the government of Denmark, the most sustainable country and also the most happiest country, and maybe the combiners is actually the purpose, why we live, what's the real purpose of our existence. On one hand, we've got them playing a very active role here on the table. We've got partners like STPI, Dr. Abid Saleri, Dr. Khalid and the very competent team. We have the Minister of Climate Change participating. We have development partners like the UNDP, all around the table to try and really help us advance this topic. We also have now a policy and guidelines in place, which, all right, still may be some work to be done. But the one missing ingredient in all of this is actually the project pipeline. And we've heard this time and time again from Dr. Irfan. I think a number of speakers have spoken and mentioned the word project pipeline. And this is really where I think the private sector and the ORCCI can play this catalytic role. But we have to take action. And there are two areas. One is what projects are we busy with in Pakistan as a multinational company, but also what can we perhaps aggregate? What little projects which don't meet the threshold of 50,000 tons can we work together? So this is something that I think we've got to look at, but also as our parent companies, are they looking to acquire carbon credits? Because perhaps they could be acquiring the credits here in Pakistan. And these are the areas that I really think as an organization, as ORCCI and our members, where we've got to really take action. When will the next Delta Blue project come from? Will it come from an ORCCI member company in the future? Because this is, we've heard it several times, where is that next big project? And I really do hope that as the ORCCI and our member companies, we can be at the forefront of the next projects on a world scale. But with that, it's really just to say a very thank you. I know we have overrun the time, but thank you very much for your participation, both in person, but also virtually. To our speakers, thank you very much indeed. I know, Dr. Irfan, we have got a gift for you, and Dr. Khalid, if he's still here. Dr. Saleri, sorry not in person, but good to see you again, and thank you very much for all that you've done for obviously the fourth edition of the Unlocking the Pathways to the Implementation of Carbon Markets in Pakistan. So with that, ORCCI is very proud and very happy to host. So thank you very much indeed. I think we are going to have a photograph. Yep. So just got, please, if we could ask everyone just to quickly go outside to have a group photograph, and then followed by a lunch. Yeah, but thank you very much indeed, and welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, if everyone can please join us outside, the ambassador is there and we can just have our group photos and then we'll come towards the lunch. Thank you. Please, if you can join us outside.